A young traveler's hands hover over a pile of kindling, coaxing flames to life. In a large pot set over the fire, a simple stew bubbles away. Sora stirs the meal, remarking to his fluffy companion that night has fallen. Suddenly, the darkness is pierced by soft, glowing orbs of magical light. His eyes widen in quiet wonder, perfectly reflecting the nascent floating lights. The night sky is a breathtaking vista of two moons, countless stars and orbs. He sits at his campsite, a lone figure enveloped in a silent blizzard of light. A night-blooming flower begins to pulse with light, responding to the magic. An orb hovers just above the blossom, engaging in a silent, beautiful conversation. Countless orbs drift through the foliage, a living part of the world's ecosystem. His companion, CL, declares that it has no interest whatsoever in being a hero. Sora agrees with a soft smile, clarifying that he is simply himself. He resolves to walk through this mysterious world as far as his legs can carry him. A vision of another path emerges, Sora with a mage and warrior ready for battle. Later, Sora walks through a bustling tavern, a strange, foldable rack on his back. A scarred man at a table negotiates, asking for 5 thin copper coins. Sora strides confidently past the patrons, his strange luggage drawing every eye. The patrons murmur, wondering about his luggage and seemingly familiar face. Outside, Sora happily asks his floating companion if it will join him again today. He reflects on being a hero candidate, now living by making daily deliveries. In this world, there are no cars to ease the burden of his work. It is also a world where the science he knew has not yet developed. He ponders the reason a boy from modern Japan can possibly survive here. The answer, he knows, lies in his unique and powerful walking skill. The delicious, savory smell of grilled meat from a stall makes his mouth water. He orders 2 skewers, and the vendor notes his perpetually heavy burden. The vendor kindly gave him an extra, but he tells his companion to wait. Unable to resist, the fluffy creature lunges eagerly toward the savory treat. He shouts a warning, but it's too late. Sticky sauce splatters everywhere. Looking down, he sees a large sticky sauce stain on his white coat. He closes his eyes and activates his purification magic to clean the mess. In a brilliant flash of light, the stain vanishes completely from his clothes. On a castle balcony, the warrior wonders what their next quest will be. Down below in the market square, Sora's gaze drifts up toward the castle. The warrior spots him and calls down, asking why he is staring so intently. Startled, he quickly looks away, stammering that it is nothing at all. But the sight of the grand castle always reminds him of his summoning day. The memory takes him back to the fateful events of just 1 month prior. In the grand throne room, a regal king welcomes the newly arrived heroes. He thanks the bewildered students for answering his kingdom's desperate call. A confident girl declares them the 7 heroes, but Sora is still confused. He looks around, dazed, trying to understand where he is and what happened. He remembers being on the train, heading to his high school entrance ceremony. A sudden blinding light had appeared, and then he found himself here. The king introduces himself and explains that this is the Elegia Kingdom. He tells them there is only one reason they have been brought to this world. Their monumental task is to defeat the newly resurrected and powerful Demon King. Sora is stunned by the sudden and unreasonable demand placed upon them. The king calmly acknowledges that their confusion is entirely to be expected. He gestures to a crystal orb, instructing them to touch it for now. A confident-looking student steps forward, volunteering to be the first to try. He hesitantly places his hand upon the smooth surface of the crystal. A holographic panel reveals his name, his incredible job, and his high stats. He laughs, amazed by his new power, as another student likens it to an RPG. The king, pleased, strokes his beard and remarks on the wonderful status. He explains to the assembled heroes that this is what is called a status panel. Those summoned to this world are blessed with powerful starter skills. These skills and high stats are a grace bestowed upon all of them. They must use these newfound powers to fight against the Demon King's forces. He declares that they are not ordinary people, but chosen to become heroes. The gravity of their situation dawns on them. They are chosen beings. Sora's heart pounds with excitement at the very thought of being chosen. The other students eagerly line up, wondering what skills they will receive. The first girl is revealed to be a powerful archmage, much to her delight. The next is a saint, a user of holy and restorative magic. A quiet girl with glasses is revealed to be a spirit magic user. Another is a holy knight, a warrior who wields sacred power in battle. The last of the group is a sword saint, a master of the blade. The group celebrates, amazed that they have truly become like heroes from a story. Sora watches them, his heart pounding, thinking how cool and amazing they all are. The king claps his hands, overjoyed by the results of the summoning. He laughs heartily, declaring that this summoning has been a resounding success. He then gives them a helpful tip for viewing their status at any time. Finally, the king's regal finger points directly at Sora, calling him forward. He wonders what amazing job he'll get, imagining telling his friends back home. With a hopeful heart and a determined cry, he reaches for the orb. His hand makes contact, and a powerful energy surges from the crystal. The panel reveals his name, Fujimiya Sora, and his pathetic, levelless status. The entire throne room falls silent as everyone stares at his status. Sora stares in disbelief, unable to process the words jobless and levelless. The horrifying reality crashes down on him. His status is the weakest imaginable. His only skill, walking, is convenient but useless for fighting the Demon King. The king looks down from his throne, his earlier joy replaced by disappointment. His advisors lean in to whisper, their hushed tones confirming his failure. The king announces the summoning of 6 heroes, deliberately excluding Sora. He calls out to his chosen champions, leaving Sora completely alone. He informs them that returning home requires the Demon King's Heartstone. For now, he says with a smile, they should rest and be welcomed. Sora stands frozen, the full weight of his abandonment crashing down on him. He looks up as the clanking of armor announces an approaching night. An armored guard stops before him, his face an impassive steel mask. The guard's voice is cold and devoid of emotion as he orders Sora along. Confused and afraid, Sora has no choice but to follow the guard. He is led away from the group, down a long, opulent, and lonely hall. Through the castle's back passages, he sees a lone carriage waiting for him. The carriage lurches forward, beginning to pull away down the empty street. The driver pays him no mind as the carriage quickly leaves him behind. Still in his school uniform, Sora is forced to run after the carriage. His dress shoes slip on the stones, sending him tumbling to the ground. He lies sprawled on the cobblestones, the first of many humiliations. Sora tumbles onto the hard cobblestones as a carriage drives away. He scrambles to his knees, watching the city gate begin to close. With a deafening thud, the massive gate slams shut, sealing him out. He screams in rage, decrying the injustice of being summoned and abandoned. A small pouch lands beside him. He picks it up, wondering if it's money. He opens it to find a meager severance pay of silver and copper coins. Clutching the pouch, he wonders aloud what he is supposed to do now. Suddenly, his eyes widen in shock as he takes in his surroundings. A breathtaking, bustling fantasy city stretches out before him. The incredible sight completely captivates him, stealing his breath away. His gaze drifts over the charming stone and brick architecture of the buildings. He sees people in strange attire, including a woman in a witch's hat. The entire scene makes him feel like he's stepped right into a video game. The curious stares of the townsfolk quickly break the spell of wonder. He kneels, flustered, stammering apologies to the crowd of onlookers. Overwhelmed, he dashes away from the crowd, shouting, "I'm sorry!" He thinks that he must escape. His clothes are far too conspicuous here. He collapses in a quiet side alley, panting to catch his breath. He sits alone, the crushing weight of his isolation finally sinking in. He looks up, lost and desperate, wondering what his future could possibly hold. His despair turns to anger as he clenches his fists, yelling about his unfair treatment. He remembers the king's words and decides to check his status again. He recalls the king explaining how to view the panel anytime, anywhere. The status panel appears, confirming his pathetic stats once more. But as he scans the details, his eyes widen, noticing something new. He sees an experience value counter that is almost completely full. He questions if this hidden effect was part of his skill all along. He realizes his walking skill gains 1 experience point for every step. He deduces the 996 points match his steps from the castle. He sits cross-legged, pondering what will happen when the experience maxes out. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a strange new sensation. The delicious smell of cooking food drifts from a nearby street of stalls. His stomach lets out a long, loud, and very insistent growl. He realizes he's starving, having missed breakfast in all the chaos. A sudden menacing presence makes him look up in alarm. A massive, intimidating man in a butcher's apron looms over him. The man's scarred face is set in a terrifying, unfriendly scowl. Sora is utterly petrified, wondering if this is a loan shark. He covers his face, stammering an apology for reasons he doesn't understand. The man raises his arm as if preparing to strike him down. Sora lets out a terrified scream, bracing for the inevitable blow. Instead, a large, sizzling skewer of meat is shoved into his mouth. He opens his eyes, completely bewildered by the unexpected act of kindness. The vendor tells him it's a grilled skewer and to eat up. Sora is stunned, realizing this terrifying man is actually a kind person. He quickly fumbles for his money pouch, insisting that he can pay. In his haste, he spills the coins all over the wooden counter. The vendor gruffly tells the boy to calm down and stop making a fuss. Sora apologizes profusely, promising to work off any debt he might owe. The vendor laughs, telling him not to offer such an outrageous sum. He patiently explains the local currency, taking 1 copper coin for the food. He hands Sora back his change with a simple, "Here you go." Sora thanks him as the vendor warns him to be careful out there. As he takes a single step, a clear sound resonates in his mind. His eyes go wide as a notification appears directly in his vision. He has leveled up, gaining a skill point and seeing a new menu. He realizes he can use these skill points to learn new abilities. The vendor asks what's wrong, but Sora quickly says it's nothing. He decides to learn appraisal first, confirming the choice in his mind. His eyes widen in amazement as the new skill instantly takes effect. He can now see the name and quality of the food he holds. He marvels at how convenient it is to learn skills just with experience. He buzzes with excitement, realizing he can learn even more skills now. The vendor asks why he's staring, and Sora says he'll eat now. He thinks about the name, Wolf, meat with a happy smile. He takes a large, eager bite of the grilled skewer. The flavor hits him, and he is momentarily stunned into silence. He exclaims that it is absolutely delicious, his face a mask of bliss. He notes how the tender meat and rich juices fill his mouth. He mentally reviews the incredible flavor, like a waltz on his tongue. He apologizes for getting carried away and giving a food review. The vendor lets out a massive, booming laugh, clearly delighted. He boasts that not even the royal chefs could replicate his quality. The vendor asks for his name, and he introduces himself as Sora. The vendor winks, sensing that Sora is in some kind of trouble. He offers to help the boy out, leaving Sora completely stunned. Sora can only ask if he's being serious, looking at the city. Sometime later, Sora sighs in contentment, remarking on the delicious meal. Now in a borrowed cloak, he hopes he can blend in better. The vendor had told him to buy new clothes to be less conspicuous. He marvels at the power of his walking skill, feeling no fatigue. He arrives at the clothing shop the vendor had pointed out to him. He looks at the sign, unable to read the foreign script. He uses his appraisal skill, which translates the sign into Japanese. He wonders if this translation is something only he can see. A cheerful shopkeeper welcomes him inside, offering to get him measured. An hour passes as he tries on various outfits for the shopkeeper. He emerges in a new outfit, looking like a character from an RPG. The shopkeeper offers to buy his old uniform for 3 gold coins. He's shocked that he actually made money by coming to buy clothes. Now properly attired, Sora returns to the vendor's stall. The vendor is impressed, and Sora thanks him for the borrowed cloak. He eagerly asks if there's any way he can repay the vendor's kindness. The vendor considers his offer, then comes up with an idea. He asks Sora to deliver a package of meat to an inn. Sora is thrilled, realizing this solves his need for lodging and a meal. He thanks the vendor, but is told to wait a moment. The vendor returns with a frying pan and a tent for his journey. He even provides a backpack and a small crime prevention bell. He loads up a rack, admitting it might be too much to carry. Sora thoughtfully considers his options, wondering if his walking skill might be the answer. He turns to the skeptical vendor, confidently declaring that it will probably be fine. The vendor shouts for him to stop, warning that the path ahead is far too steep. Sora plants his feet on the cobblestones, bracing himself to test his unique ability. With a brilliant smile, he walks away easily, the impossible load now feeling weightless. The vendor can only stare in utter disbelief, a bead of sweat on his temple. Sora is shocked to realize the crushing weight vanishes the moment he starts walking. He waves a cheerful goodbye, thanking the vendor and promising to visit his stall again. With a new sense of purpose, his expression hardens as he faces the road ahead. He looks up at the inn, realizing this must be the otherworld standard for a walk. He reflects that his old self would have been absolutely unable to make this climb. But with his walking skill, he feels invincible, easily scaling the rocky path. A sudden beautiful sound catches his attention, and he looks up with curiosity. He pauses to admire a magnificent, colorful bird tending to its chick on a branch. He activates his appraisal skill, eager to learn more about the wondrous creature. A panel reveals its name, the 7-colored auspicious bird, and its unique nesting habits. He marvels that this world is full of things he has never seen or heard of. A small, satisfied smile plays on his lips as he continues his effortless journey. He playfully hops from rock to rock, realizing that he is starting to have fun. He once thought walking was a useless skill, but now considers it might be the best. A gentle, happy smile graces his face as he fully embraces his new life. He recalls the despair he felt when he was cast out of the royal castle. But he also remembers the kindness of the city's people and their delicious food. More than anything, he realizes that everything he sees is a new and exciting experience. He affirms with certainty that, surprisingly, he is truly enjoying this new world. The profound realization hits him with a jolt of pure, unadulterated joy. From his high vantage point, he looks down at the sprawling city of Elegia. The breathtaking panorama of the capital city and its walls stretches out before him. He is amazed by its beauty, still processing being suddenly summoned to this other world. He remembers his initial confusion, not knowing where to go or what to do. He had felt lost and alone, wondering what would become of him. But now a quiet resolve settles over him. He has finally made his decision. He takes a deep breath, ready to declare his new purpose to the world. He vows to use his walking skill to see more and more of this world. This is the story of him, a boy who was summoned as a failed hero. He will follow his boundless curiosity wherever it may lead him on his journey. He will meet many strange and interesting people along the way. He will face many dangers and challenges that test his newfound resolve. With his own 2 feet, he will walk this wonderful and mysterious other world. His status screen confirms his growth, concluding the first chapter of his walking tale. Sunlight streams into his in-room, the capital of Elegia visible outside the window. He sits up in bed, realizing that yesterday's incredible events were not a dream. He stretches, embracing his first true morning in this world, wondering what to do. With a determined look, he decides on his first course of action: find a job. The second chapter of his journey begins, aptly titled, Let's Find a Job. He walks through the bustling city streets, a new sense of purpose in his step. He approaches the familiar stall of the kind food vendor who first helped him. He cheerfully greets the vendor, who offers him a fresh skewer in return. While eating, he explains to the vendor that he is currently looking for work. The vendor asks if he possesses any special skills, like alchemy or potion making. Sora thinks for a moment before admitting that he doesn't have any such skills. The vendor strokes his chin, saying that in that case, there is another place to go. Sora looks up, intrigued by the suggestion, asking where this place might be. The vendor explains it's a place where requests for all kinds of jobs are gathered. He gives Sora simple directions, telling him to head west down the main street. He explains that a large, distinctive building will soon come into view on the right. Sora arrives before a grand building and realizes it is the Adventurers Guild. His face lights up with a huge smile. This is just like a real game world. He buzzes with excitement, wondering what kind of amazing people he'll meet inside. Steeling his resolve, he prepares to step into the world of adventurers. He grips the heavy wooden door handle, ready to begin his new life in earnest. Inside, a chaotic bar fight is in full swing, the raucous crowd cheering wildly. Sora peers cautiously through the doorway, stunned by the rowdy scene within. One of the brawlers shoves the other with a tremendous, powerful burst of force. The man goes flying backward, slamming directly into the unsuspecting Sora at the door. Sora groans on the floor, realizing this is very different from what he had imagined. A sudden shriek of alarm comes from the reception desk just above him. He is suddenly buried under a messy, chaotic avalanche of falling books. The flustered receptionist rushes to apologize profusely for the unfortunate accident. She asks if he is a new customer, surrounded by the paper-strewn mess. Sora, still buried under the pile, apologizes for the trouble he has caused. The receptionist, Mikal, explains she was moving books during the guild's current repairs. Sora reassures her that he's fine, though she comically thinks he is not. He remembers his purpose, asking if this is indeed the place to find work. Mikal confirms it, explaining that he must first register with a drop of his blood. Sora nervously holds a small, sharp knife, preparing to make the necessary cut. A single dark drop of blood falls from the tip of his finger. The drop lands on the blank card, sending out faint magical ripples. Swirls of energy dance across the card's surface, forming intricate, glowing patterns. The card flashes with a brilliant, magical light as the registration process completes. His name and affiliation with the Elegia Kingdom's Guild appear in elegant script. Sora looks down at his new official guild card with a sense of accomplishment. Mikal cheerfully informs him that as an E-rank adventurer, he gets a white card. Sora seems confused by the term, so Mikal clarifies what a rank is. She shows him the ranking board, indicating his place at the very bottom. She then gestures toward a large wall covered from top to bottom in papers. She explains all available quests from the town and nearby villages are posted there. Completing quests earns points for ranking up, but failure brings heavy penalties. Sora wonders if he can do it, feeling weak compared to the other adventurers. Miko reassures him, suggesting he start with simple requests to find his niche. Sora stands before the quest board, overwhelmed by the sheer number of available jobs. He notes the wide variety of requests, from herb gathering to finding a lost cat. He sees a wolf subjugation quest, but knows it is impossible without a sword. A menacing scarred adventurer looms over him, calling out to him in a low voice. The man sneers, asking if a little twig-like runt like him can really hunt wolves. Terrified, Sora frantically insists he had no intention of taking on such a quest. He wonders why this terrifying man is picking a fight with him for no reason. The man shoves him, saying that delivery quests are much more fitting for him. Panicked, Sora rips a handful of delivery requests from the board, agreeing to do them. Clutching the papers, he nervously wonders if the guild is a truly terrifying place. Inside the guild, someone calls out that a delivery request has been made. Mikkel, the receptionist, is shocked by the number of jobs, asking if he can handle it. Sora admits he chose randomly out of fear, but decides it's a good way to learn the city. Mikkel cheerfully points to the mountain of cargo, noting how much there is. As Sora leaves, he feels the painful, judgmental stares of the other adventurers. The heavy guild door slams shut behind him with a loud and final bang. Now outside, Sora lets out a long sigh, admitting how nervous he was. He reflects on his life in Japan, where he never met such intimidating people. Looking at a map, he realizes this world's common sense is completely different. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind as he questions if he can survive here. He vigorously shakes his head, dispelling the negative thoughts and steeling his resolve. Declaring that the job comes first, he sets off towards the Commerce Guild. He arrives at a warehouse to deliver 5 heavy sacks of flour. Next, he cheerfully hands over 3 bags of herbs to the Apothecaries Guild. His deliveries continue as he hands a package to a man on the street. He brings a gift to a family, making the happy children jump for joy. In a town square, he gives another parcel to a waiting woman. His final stop is with a smiling elderly woman, completing his day's work. He marvels at the number of guilds in this world while enjoying a bonus ice cream. He reflects on how convenient his walking skill is, as he feels no fatigue. Curious about his progress after all that work, he decides to check his status. He is amazed to see his walking skill is now level 8 and his stats have risen. He studies the panel, noting that the experience required for the next level has increased. He realizes that, like his level, his skill points are also increasing steadily. Excited by his potential, he heads off to complete his last delivery. He arrives at a beautiful, well-kept house and calls out, "Excuse me!" The small wooden gate to the garden creaks open as he approaches the door. An incredibly elegant woman with striking white streaks in her hair asks his business. Sora is completely flustered by her beauty, thinking she looks just like an actress. He stammers, holding out a letter and explaining that it's a delivery for her. The woman's eyes fly open in shock as he reveals the sender is Rai Renoba. From an upstairs window, a man shouts her name, Vanessa, telling her to wait. Sora is startled by the sudden dramatic turn of events. Vanessa snatches the letter from his hand with a sharp, forceful motion. He can only watch, surprised, as she takes the letter he was offering. She glares down at the letter, her expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. She turns and storms back into the house, slamming the door shut behind her. Sora is left bewildered, realizing he still needs a signature for the quest. The door bursts open again, and Vanessa tells him he's going to rise now. She thrusts another letter into his hands, this one sealed with a rose wax stamp. She commands him to deliver this new letter, addressed to Rai from Vanessa. Overwhelmed, Sora can only stammer his agreement to the unexpected request. As he walks away, he wonders what kind of letter could provoke such a reaction. He arrives at a rustic workshop, the sign identifying it as Rai's house. The door creaks open, and a disheveled man with wild hair peeks out. Sora politely asks if this is Rai's residence, and the man confirms it is. Rai, looking exhausted, asks who Sora is, not recognizing the young delivery man. Sora explains that he's here to report the completion of the delivery quest. With a cheerful smile, he adds that he has another letter for Rai. He reveals that the letter is from Vanessa, holding it out for him to take. Rai's weary expression vanishes, replaced by one of pure, panicked shock. Sora tilts his head in confusion, not understanding the man's extreme reaction. Rai breaks into a cold sweat, blushing furiously at the mention of her name. He becomes completely flustered, insisting it's not a love letter as Sora thinks. Sora blushes, now convinced he has stumbled upon a secret romance. Rai's face contorts in a comical expression of sheer, tooth-grinding panic. Sora connects Vanessa's reaction to this, concluding it must be a reply to a confession. Steam practically billows from Rai's head as he holds the fateful letter. Sora offers to leave, saying he'll be cheering for him from afar. Rai stops him, too terrified to read the letter alone. his heart about to explode. Rai paces nervously back and forth, the letter shaking in his hands. A full 10 minutes pass as Sora waits patiently for Rai to calm himself. Finally, Rai brings the letter close, his face a mask of nervous anticipation. A small stopwatch dings, signaling the end of his 10-minute panic attack. Sora nervously asks how it went as Rai looks up from the letter. Rai's face breaks into a radiant, joyful smile, confirming the news is good. Sora looks on, surprised but happy at the wonderful outcome. He congratulates Rai, genuinely happy that things worked out for him. Overjoyed, Rai's spirit seems to literally leave his body in celebration. Sora walks away, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction from his work. He smiles, thinking he never expected to see something so wonderful on a delivery job. With his work done, he heads to the guild to report, feeling it was a good day. He pushes open the heavy guild door, a satisfied smile on his face. Inside, the air is thick with tension as two adventurers glare daggers at each other. Sora's good mood evaporates as he takes in the hostile atmosphere. He walks through the silent, staring crowd, deciding to finish his report quickly. He reaches the counter and tells Mikal that his deliveries are now complete. Mikal is amazed, exclaiming that he moves so much without even getting tired. Sora, flustered by the praise, waves his hands and says it's just his skill. Mikal leans in conspiratorially, asking if there was a letter from Rai among his deliveries. She leans over the counter, her eyes wide as she eagerly asks for the result. Sora smiles and announces that it seems the two of them have started dating. Mikal suddenly leaps to her feet, her voice booming through the silent hall. Sora is confused, sweating as he wonders if he said something wrong. The entire guild erupts in a massive, joyous cheer, mobbing the bewildered Sora. He is lifted into the air, completely lost as to what is happening. The adventurers toss him in the air, shouting that today is a feast. The guild hall transforms into a wild party, with food and drink everywhere. Mikal and the other receptionists celebrate, overjoyed that it all worked out. Two adventurers lament that Rai beat them to it, drowning their sorrows in ale. An adventurer puts his arm around Sora, offering him food on his tab. A woman explains that Rai's unrequited love for Vanessa is a famous story. Another adventurer adds that they must celebrate his 27-year-long love finally succeeding. Sora realizes with a start that he may have just acted as Cupid for the couple. He looks at the scarred adventurer and the others, realizing they're surprisingly kind. The scarred adventurer looms over him, calling him out as the kid from that morning. Sora is terrified, wondering why the man is getting carried away and threatening him. The man explains he saw him by the quest board and was about to intervene. Sora is stunned, unable to process the man's strange, contradictory logic. He realizes with a shock that the man was planning to kill him to protect him. Siphon looms over a startled Sora, angrily revealing he was worried enough to kill him. Another adventurer explains Siphon's gruff manner is often misunderstood, leaving Sora confused. Sora finally understands Siphon was guiding him towards safer delivery quests out of concern. Looking around the boisterous guild hall, Sora realizes he had completely misjudged everyone. He reflects that, without his own prejudice, he would have seen they were all kind. The doors burst open as an adventurer triumphantly hoists a flustered Rai into the air. Rai, overwhelmed by the sudden attention, thinks about the kind people of the guild. The entire guild erupts in a massive celebration, hailing Rai for his romantic victory. Rai looks fondly at Vanessa's letter, thinking of her bright and cheerful personality. A soft, amused smile spreads across Sora's face as he watches the joyful scene. With a huge grin, Sora shouts another heartfelt congratulations to the happy inventor. Siphon is chided for trying to serve the underage Sora, who is only drinking juice. Under the twin moons, Sora looks at the city and feels he's starting to love this world. The scene shifts to the peaceful exterior of Ares Inn, Sora's new home. A week after his summoning, Sora wakes up in his room, stretching happily. He spends his days studying in the guild's library, learning about this new world. His circle of friends at the guild has grown, and they share meals together. His reputation for reliability grows, and merchants now request him for deliveries by name. Pleased with his progress, Sora decides to check his status with a simple thought. His status panel appears in his mind's eye as he looks out at the city. He smiles, seeing his level has risen to 16, with his stats greatly increased. He observes that as he walks and levels up, his acquired skills grow stronger too. Surprised by his 15 banked skill points, he considers learning some new abilities. A list of available skills appears, offering a wide range of powerful options. He mulls over his choices, thinking life magic and Kai perception would be useful. The scene returns to the peaceful morning outside Ari's Inn. He cheerfully tells the innkeeper he has something very exciting planned for the day. He runs off, declaring his first trip outside the city, his new skills displayed. The 4 new skills, Kai Perception, Body Enhancement, Life Magic, and Magic Power Operation, are detailed. He decides against using points to level his skills, preferring to raise them through use. Deciding to test his new abilities, he activates his Life Magic Purification spell. He is shocked as a week's worth of accumulated dirt and grime is instantly washed away. Feeling completely refreshed, he stands on a hill overlooking the city and stretches happily. He arrives at the Adventurers Guild to accept his first herb-gathering quest. Mikkel cheerfully confirms his first quest outside the walls and wishes him the best. She then asks if he is properly equipped for the dangers beyond the city. Sora pauses, realizing he completely forgot to prepare any adventuring gear for himself. Siphon appears, warning of monsters and confirming that Sora needs proper equipment. Siphon grins, offering to show Sora to a good weapon shop he knows personally. Siphon leads the way down a narrow, secluded alley towards the discreet shop. He pushes the door open, warning Sora about the shopkeeper's blunt personality. Inside the weapon-lined shop, Siphon calls out a casual greeting to the owner. The gaunt shopkeeper takes a puff from his pipe, offering a simple acknowledgement. Sora looks around in awe at the impressive collection of weapons and armor. Siphon explains that Sora needs to be outfitted for a job outside the city. Sora gulps nervously under the shopkeeper's intense and dismissive gaze. The old man exhales smoke, bluntly asking the boy what he's capable of. Sora admits his lack of skill, but shyly says he thinks swords look cool. The shopkeeper's eye twitches in annoyance at the boy's naive and useless answer. He points to a simple sword on the counter and orders Sora to try it. He observes the slender blade, realizing this is his first time holding a real sword. As his hand closes around the hilt, he's surprised by how heavy it is. He struggles to lift the weapon, his stance weak and utterly unbalanced. The shopkeeper watches the pathetic display with a deeply unimpressed expression. Sora blushes with embarrassment, aware of how much of an amateur he looks. The shopkeeper advises him to stay in the city or find a skilled partner. He decides to give Sora the only weapon he thinks the boy can handle. He places a simple but sturdy knife on the wooden counter before him. The shopkeeper explains the knife is for Sora's own safety, not for fighting. Siphon encourages him, saying everyone starts by training hard to level up. A sudden thought strikes Sora, a spark of an idea flashing in his mind. He recalls seeing swordsmanship on his list of skills he could learn. He immediately decides to spend a skill point to acquire the swordsmanship skill. A surge of knowledge and instinct flows through him in a single, brilliant instant. He looks at his hands in wonder, thinking this might be the answer. He turns to the shopkeeper and asks to try holding a different, larger sword. The shopkeeper scoffs but allows it, certain the boy lacks the skill to wield it. In a blur of motion, his arms move with practiced ease, swinging the blade. He executes a dazzling and flawless series of slashes, a master swordsman's form. Sora holds his final pose, his own expression showing a hint of surprise. Siphon stares in utter disbelief, completely shocked by the sudden display of skill. The shopkeeper is equally stunned, his pipe hanging loosely from his open mouth. Sora nervously asks for his opinion, but the old man is too shocked to speak. He requests both a weapon and armor, stating his budget is 1 gold coin. The shopkeeper slams his hand on the counter, snapping out of his stupor. He tells them to wait and heads to the back, as Siphon laughs at his reaction. The old man returns from the back room carrying a curated set of gear. He places the high-quality equipment carefully on a nearby wooden bench. The gear includes a fine sword, a chest plate, gauntlets, and a dismantling knife. Siphon recognizes the rare sword with awe, while Sora just thinks it looks cool. The shopkeeper says the sword is a perfect fit, impressed by Sora's display. He explains the dragonhide chest plate is a fine piece of protective gear. Encouraged to work hard, Sora gives a firm and determined, "Yes, sir." Now fully equipped, Sora thanks Siphon, who wishes him luck on his quest. He stands before the city's massive gate, ready for his first venture outside. A guard stops him at the gate, asking to see his identification. Trying to look like a proper adventurer, Sora presents his guild card. The guard calmly examines the card, confirming his identity and rank. With a nod, the guard hands the card back and tells him he's clear to pass. Flustered by the official procedure, Sora stammers a quiet word of thanks. The guard offers some friendly advice, telling him to be careful of monsters. The guard turns and bellows the command to open the massive city gate. The immense gate groans as it slowly begins to swing open for him. A brilliant smile lights up Sora's face as he thinks, finally, the outside world. He steps out into a vast, untamed landscape of rolling hills and mountains. He feels the warm sunlight and smells the fresh, clean scent of the wind. With a sword at his hip, he is now fully a part of this world. He runs up a grassy hill, embracing the feeling of this new open world. He looks out at the unfamiliar landscape and lets out a joyous shout. A wide, happy grin spreads across his face, full of hope and excitement. Sora sits atop a grassy hill, realizing his walking skill doesn't prevent fatigue from running. The new chapter begins as Sora rests peacefully in a field, his journey's companion yet unknown. His first quest is to gather herbs from a location some distance outside the kingdom. The medicinal herbs he seeks are the primary ingredient for making restorative potions. He enters the forest excited for his first real adventure outside the city walls. Surrounded by similar-looking plants, he realizes he can't tell which are the right herbs. A sudden realization strikes him, a solution to his predicament dawning on his face. With intense focus, he activates his powerful appraisal skill to analyze the flora. His vision fills with information, identifying each plant by name and even its quality. He marvels that his skill reveals not just the type, but the quality of each herb. He understands that better quality herbs will surely create more potent potions. He eagerly begins gathering, also picking up bonus herbs like full moon grass. Several productive hours pass as he diligently works his way through the forest. With a full sack of herbs, he stretches his aching back after the long task. He is suddenly surprised by an unexpected notification appearing on his status screen. His physical exertion has caused his body enhancement skill to level up to 2. A sudden loud rustling from the nearby undergrowth puts him instantly on alert. He panics, realizing he'd let his guard down and forgotten to activate his perception skill. His hand instinctively grips the hilt of his sword, preparing for a fight. He draws his weapon, cautiously turning to face the unseen source of the noise. The rustling grows louder as he wonders what manner of creature is about to appear. A small, impossibly fluffy, winged creature tumbles out into the clearing before him. His defensive posture melts away, replaced by a look of pure, utter shock. He is completely captivated by the impossibly cute creature that has just appeared. His heart is instantly pierced by an arrow of overwhelming, weaponized cuteness. A loud stomach growl breaks the silence, and he asks the creature if it's hungry. Remembering his rations, he quickly rummages through his pack to find something for it. He pulls out 2 hard bars of preserved food he bought at the weapon shop. With a nervous smile, he offers a piece of the ration to the small creature. The fluffy being hops forward and eagerly takes a bite from his outstretched hand. He watches, completely charmed by its puffy cheeks as it chews the hard food. The creature suddenly stops chewing, its expression changing from happy to concerned. With a look of disgust, it violently spits the unpalatable food onto the ground. It shakes its entire body, its long ears flopping, clearly hating the taste. Horrified, Sora asks if it really tasted that bad, offering a sincere apology. He tries a bite himself and immediately gags, realizing just how awful it is. He kneels, apologizing again for offering it something so profoundly disgusting. To his surprise, the little creature floats gently into the air, its wings fluttering. More identical creatures appear, circling him as if to say everything is all right. One of the fluffy beings drifts down to rest softly on top of his head. The creature settles in like a soft, living hat, looking down at him curiously. Looking up with a smile, he asks the creature if it wants to travel with him. It nods enthusiastically, and Sora is once again overwhelmed by its sheer cuteness. With a determined shout, he happily agrees that they will now travel together. The fluffy creature sparkles with delight, its face a picture of pure happiness. As he introduces himself, his senses are suddenly struck by an alarming feeling. A strange and powerful presence registers in his mind, sending a jolt of shock through him. His Kai perception skill flares, detecting 6 presences approaching rapidly from the south. He stands frozen, realizing with dread that there is no time or way to escape. A pack of massive wolves bursts from the trees, already engaged in a fierce battle. 2 girls, a warrior and a mage, are desperately fighting against the wolf pack. The short-haired blonde warrior grits her teeth, her expression fierce and determined. The hooded mage clutches her staff, her face strained with exhaustion and fear. Sora stares in disbelief, realizing that the 2 girls are fighting monsters. A massive white wolf rears back, its maw wide as it lets out a ferocious roar. The warrior bravely intercepts the lunge, her twin blades crossed to block its claws. The next chapter begins introducing the 2 embattled adventurers, Rurika and Chris. From a distance, Sora watches as the 2 girls are completely surrounded by the wolves. He realizes with shock that 2 people are desperately fighting against a wolf pack. He recognizes their adventurer gear and sees that they are already covered in wounds. The warrior, Chris, shouts for her companion to fall back, taking a protective stance. One is a dual wielder, while the other, a mage, looks completely exhausted. He recalls a book from the guild, noting that wolves are defined by their incredible speed. The dual wielder seems faster, but she is struggling against the sheer number of wolves. The other girl is too exhausted to provide any magical support for her partner. The warrior is forced to fight while simultaneously protecting the exhausted mage. He realizes grimly that their defeat is only a matter of time at this rate. He knows he has to do something, that he has to try and help them. He hesitates, knowing he could die, having never been in a real fight before. Overcoming his fear, he grips his sword, resolving that he must fight now. A wolf, its eyes glowing with feral light, lunges forward with a vicious snarl. Chris meets the attack head-on, her twin swords clashing against the beast's claws. The force of the blow is too great, knocking one of her swords from her grasp. Her sword clatters uselessly to the ground, leaving her vulnerable and off balance. She looks on in shock, her defense broken by the powerful attack. Her eyes widen in terror as she realizes the danger she is now in. The wolves seize the opportunity, lunging at the now defenseless warrior. The mage and the warrior both scream in terror as the pack closes in. Sora's eyes widen as he sees a wolf breaking away to attack the mage. His senses scream a warning, a jolt of danger coursing through his body. A wolf leaps through the air, its claws extended, aimed directly at the mage. The warrior's face is a mask of horror as she sees her friend in mortal danger. In a flash, an unseen intervention changes the course of the battle. The mage desperately fends off a wolf, its jaws snapping inches from her face. She grits her teeth, holding the beast back with the last of her strength. Sora points with a wild grin, having seemingly directed the tide of battle. A wolf collapses, a short sword suddenly embedded deep in its side. The reality of his actions hits him, his eyes wide with shock and fear. The mage looks on, her eyes widening in surprise at the sudden turn of events. The warrior continues her desperate fight, holding back two wolves at once. A wolf, seeing Sora as a threat, turns its attention away from the girls. Chris shouts a desperate warning, telling him that one of the wolves is heading his way. The lone wolf charges toward him, and he knows this is a bad situation. The beast snarls, its eyes full of killing intent, and Sora thinks he is going to die. He knows he must fight, but realizes with terror that he has no weapon. His eyes dart around in panic, searching for any possible way to survive. He spots the sword that the dual-wielding girl had dropped on the ground. As the wolf leaps, he dives desperately, his hand reaching for the fallen blade. The wolf descends upon him, its massive jaws open wide, ready to crush him. He rolls, bringing the sword up in a desperate, last-second, life-saving thrust. Sora kneels in the grass, the dead wolf draped over him, a sword in its back. A close-up reveals Chris's hand tightly gripping her sword, dripping with dark blood. Sora gasps for air, his heart pounding in his chest after the frantic battle. Barely conscious, Chris whispers that she has been saved, her strength finally gone. Sora looks up from the ground, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning relief. Chris and Rurika rush through the forest toward him, their footsteps hurried and urgent. Kneeling by the slain beast, Sora realizes with a gasp that they were saved. The two girls arrive, their attention fixed on the boy who came to their aid. Chris extends her hand, thanking him profusely for saving them from certain death. Rurika quietly adds her own thanks, confirming that his intervention saved them. Sora looks at the two heroes, still dazed by the sudden turn of events. He takes her offered hand, their palms meeting in a gesture of shared survival. They shake hands firmly, a new and unexpected alliance formed on the battlefield. Rurika introduces herself, and Chris follows, cheerfully giving her own name. Flustered by the introductions, Sora stammers that his name is Sora. Chris and Rurika share a warm, knowing smile at his bashful demeanor. Chris cheerfully suggests they should dismantle the wolves while the meat is fresh. Sora is left completely speechless, utterly bewildered by her pragmatic suggestion. The word dismantle echoes in his mind under the vast, uncaring forest canopy. The battlefield is a grim tableau of fallen wolves, their bodies still and silent. Sora looks down at his adventurer's coat, spattered with the dark blood of battle. He looks up, still trying to process Chris's bizarrely upbeat declaration. With a wink, Chris asks if they should get started on dismantling the carcasses. A new chapter begins. Step 6, first time dismantling, as the girls rest. Chris peeks over a wolf's body, her expression filled with genuine concern. She finds Sora kneeling, looking unwell, and asks if he's okay. He apologizes, explaining this is his very first time as an adventurer. Chris is amazed, asking if he really took down 2 wolves on his first try. Sora dismisses his success as a mere fluke, still visibly shaken by the fight. His hands tremble uncontrollably as he realizes he has killed a living creature. He tries to steady his breathing, overwhelmed by the visceral reality of his actions. A strange, exhilarating feeling begins to bubble up from deep within him. He wonders what this sudden feeling of elation is, touching his face in confusion. He recalls feeling this same instinctual, thrilling rush during the wolf fight. He remembers how his body moved on its own, swinging the sword without thought. He questions this unfamiliar sensation, so unlike his usual self, as Chris calls his name. Chris offers to teach him how to dismantle, noting that the monster's meat is valuable. Rurika sternly tells Chris to rest, saying she will handle the dismantling instead. Chris insists that dismantling is a mandatory skill all adventurers must learn. Sora agrees with a determined yes, ready to learn the grim but necessary task. Rurika begins her lesson, explaining that they must first remove the creature's innards. She recounts how they, a D-rank duo, were on a quest for killer bee honey. But as they approached the hive, they were suddenly ambushed by a wolf pack. She used magic to scatter half the pack, but Chris ran out of stamina fighting. Chris closes her eyes, lamenting the ultimate failure of their quest. While bandaging her wounds, she sighs that the honey request was a bust. Sora finds himself noticing how lightly dressed Chris is, a thought that flusters him. Chris catches him staring and pointedly asks what he is looking at so intently. He flails his hands, frantically insisting that it was nothing at all. Rurika leans in very close to him, her intense gaze making him blush. She asks him what's wrong, and he stammers, completely flustered by her proximity. He tries to focus on the task, telling himself not to get distracted. Rurika holds up an organ, explaining the valuable magic stone is found inside. Sora recoils, covering his mouth, overwhelmed by the gruesome sight and smell. From the trees, his friends call out his name, asking if he is all right. A side-by-side comparison shows Rurika's neat butchery versus Sora's hacked mess. Sora hangs his head in shame, calling his work garbage, but Rurika reassures him. With the task done, Chris suggests they put the materials into preservation bags. Sora asks if he can do something for them, getting their curious attention. He closes his eyes and activates his purification magic with a quiet command. A powerful torrent of magical water swirls into existence around them. The cleansing water envelops the two girls, who stare in utter shock. A close-up reveals their wide, astonished eyes as the magic washes over them. Sora smiles as Chris cheers, delighted that all the dirt and blood is gone. They ask in amazement how he can use purification magic, a very rare skill. Sora realizes his ability is special and thinks he should be more discreet about it. The trio prepares to leave the forest, Sora carrying a massive load on his back. He carefully ties the ropes, securing the heavy bundles to his foldable rack. The girls worry he can't carry it, but he says he's strong with luggage. He hefts the pack, cheerfully declaring it's time to head back to the capital. He looks up at the sky, the immense weight no burden to him as he walks. Unseen by the others, his fluffy companion floats happily through the undergrowth. Sora continues his journey back, his expression resolute and focused. The forest is quiet and empty, with no sign of the little creature. Sora looks around, a little sad, thinking that his fluffy friend has gone away. He turns his head but sees nothing there, confirming he is alone. The trio walks toward the distant capital, their first quest together finally complete. They arrive back at the impressive, towering structure of the Adventurers Guild. Mikkel greets Chris and Rurika from behind the counter with a cheerful, "Welcome back." She notices Sora with them, and Chris explains they met during their quest. Chris drops the heavy bags of wolf meat onto the counter with a loud thud. Mikkel is stunned by the massive haul of wolf meat they have brought back. She offers to waive the processing fee as a special service for such a large delivery. Sora blushes, embarrassed and overwhelmed by the special treatment and attention. Mikkel is confused as Sora thanks her profusely, while Chris tries to calm him. Sora then presents his own haul of herbs, amazing Mikkel with the sheer quantity. As they complete the transaction, a guild worker brings a cart for the herbs. Mikkel then remembers to ask what happened with their killer bee quest. Chris apologizes, explaining they couldn't get close to the hive. Her expression is grim as she recalls the reason for their mission's failure. The mention of a wolf pack causes a sudden, tense stir among the guild members. Sora feels the unsettling shift in the atmosphere, a palpable sense of dread. The sound of heavy, authoritative footsteps echoes as a figure approaches. The guildmaster appears, demanding to know if the wolf pack rumor is true. He repeats his question, his gaze sharp and intense, demanding the absolute truth. The three adventurers look on, their faces grim, wordlessly confirming the dire news. The guildmaster shouts, furious that a pack appeared in a supposedly safe forest. The other adventurers in the hall fall silent, listening intently to the exchange. He orders Mikhail to report the emergency to the other guilds in the royal castle. He turns, warning the trio to be extremely careful when leaving the capital. The trio stands quietly before the massive closed gate of the Adventurers Guild. Sora admits how incredible the battle was, and Chris agrees it was a big deal. Chris cheerfully notes they sold the wolf meat for a good price despite everything. Sora protests, taking half the reward, as he only defeated one wolf. Chris invites Sora to dinner, saying there is something she wants to discuss. She suggests a restaurant that cooks monster meat, perfect for Sora's butchered wolf. The girls wave goodbye, promising to meet him at sunset after they drop off their gear. Rurika playfully nudges Chris, who is carrying the bag of meat. Rurika teases Chris, asking if she has started to fall for Sora. Flustered, Rurika runs away as Chris chases after her, telling her to wait. Sora watches them go down the street, thinking they get along so well. He muses on how they form a perfect party together. A wistful look crosses his face as he thinks of his own weak status. He imagines himself fighting alongside the other powerful summon heroes. A sad smile appears as he dismisses the impossible thought. He decides to head back to his inn to rest before their meeting. Later, he arrives at a restaurant with a sign in an unfamiliar script. Sora stares in disbelief at the feast made from his wolf meat. Chris proudly declares the restaurant's chef is a top-class professional. Sora takes a bite and is stunned by the incredible flavor. Rurika blushes, impressed by the chef's skill. Chris smiles happily at Sora's reaction. The group enjoys their meal in the bustling restaurant. Chris is glad Sora is enjoying himself, noting he didn't know the place. She asks if he is from another country, given his fresh reactions. Sora explains he is from a very distant place. Chris asks why he became an adventurer in this country. He explains that it's for a variety of reasons. He smiles brightly, declaring his dream is to walk the entire world. Chris and Rurika are captivated by his simple, grand ambition. Chris is surprised, while Rurika calls it a wonderful dream. Chris leans forward with an idea. She reveals they also plan to travel the world after a while longer here. Rurika nods in agreement with Chris's plan. They intend to stay in this country for just a little while. With a bright smile, Chris asks Sora to form a party with them. Sora is completely stunned by her sudden, unexpected offer. His shock echoes from the restaurant into the night. He stammers in disbelief at the incredible invitation. He asks if they really want to party with him. He protests, saying it's a dream, but he's just an E-rank burden. He insists there are many stronger adventurers they could choose from. Chris explains that she values his honesty and straightforward nature. She recalls his earnestness while dismantling the wolf. It is because of his honesty that she wants to adventure with him. Sora is deeply moved by her sincere words. He stands abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. Chris and Rurika welcome him with warm, happy smiles. A new chapter begins. Step 8, the 7 Great Nations. Sora asks about their travels. He asks where the two of them originally came from. Rurika quietly states they are from the Eld Republic. Chris happily adds that it was a very nice place. Sora recognizes the name as one of the 7 Great Nations. A map shows the 7 nations that comprise this world. The human supremacist Boss Heil Empire scorns all other races. The Elegia Kingdom, while not as strict, also prioritizes humans. The Eld Republic is a place where many races coexist peacefully. The Last Beast Kingdom is ruled by a king of the Beastmen. The Holy Kingdom of Freylin is a theocracy devoted to a goddess. The Aefa Magic Nation is a gathering of magical researchers. The Rolf Dragon Kingdom is a land where dragons are revered. This balance of power was shattered 10 years ago. The war quickly spread across the entire continent. The world was plunged into a war with no end in sight. During this time, the Holy Kingdom received a divine revelation of the Demon King. The appearance of monsters forced the nations into a truce. But monsters from the Black Forest still attack neighboring countries. Sora realizes that their home country is at war. Chris confirms their village was destroyed, forcing them to travel and work. Sora is amazed they can live so strongly after such hardship. He is deeply impressed by their incredible resilience. He declares that he will do his best to be a source of strength for them. The girls thank him with bright, grateful smiles. Chris asks Sora about his plans for the next day. Sora says he's free, though he planned on doing deliveries. Chris is glad to hear that he is available. She leans in with a mischievous, suggestive smile. Sora blushes, completely flustered by her forwardness. The scene shifts to the imposing Adventurers Guild Hall. The next day, Sora faces Chris in the guild's training yard. Chris grins, ready for their sparring match. Sora nervously asks Rurika what is happening. Chris explains she wants to test his skills after the wolf fight. Sora tries to explain it was just his swordsmanship skill. Chris laughs, saying there are no questions asked, telling him to wait. She dashes forward to begin the fight. She leaps into the air, her twin swords ready to strike. Sora blocks her powerful downward strike with his own sword. He grits his teeth, straining under the force of her attack. Chris relentlessly presses her assault, telling him he'll be cut down if he only dodges. He parries her flurry of blows, panting from the exertion. Chris spots an opening, thinking now is the time to counterattack. She feints, deliberately exposing her flank to him. Sora is amazed his sword moves exactly as he thinks, thanks to his skill. As he moves in, Chris pivots to strike his unprotected back. His eyes widen in shock as he realizes her trap. She had only pretended to raise both her swords for a frontal attack. He twists his body, bringing his sword around to defend his back. He successfully blocks her surprise attack just in time. In the training yard, Chris's twin swords descend in a powerful final strike. Sora parries the attack, but the force sends his own sword flying from his grasp. The watching adventurers gasp, stunned by the sudden and decisive end to the spar. Thrown off balance, Sora collapses to one knee, panting from the sheer effort. He looks up in awe, realizing Chris is far more powerful than he ever imagined. Chris smiles, complimenting his speed and his good instincts for finding an opening. She notes, however, that his movements are sometimes strangely jerky and unpredictable. As she speaks, Sora's fluffy companion appears, floating worriedly near her head. Sora's eyes widen in shock as he sees the familiar, cloud-like creature materialize. He whispers, asking if it's the same one he encountered in the forest. Confused, Chris asks what's wrong, as Sora realizes she cannot see the creature. The fluffy being floats directly in front of his face, its expression full of concern. He quietly asks if the creature is worried about him after the intense fight. In a silent puff of white light, the creature vanishes, leaving Sora bewildered. Chris and Rurika rush to his side, worried that Chris was too harsh in their spar. With the training over, Chris cheerfully asks Sora about their next quest. She suggests a subjugation quest, which would also serve as excellent training for him. A new chapter begins, titled Step 9, Preparing for Camp, as they plan their next move. The trio stands before the massive quest board, searching for a suitable job. Chris explains that to travel the world, Sora must get stronger, as camping is dangerous. She asks if he has ever been camping before, and he nervously denies it. He admits that the thought of his first night outside the city has him buzzing with excitement. Chris studies a request for goblin subjugation, noting it's a good opportunity for a novice. Sora is happy for the challenge, but worries he isn't strong enough for his companions. Chris points to the quest, explaining it's a way of thanking him for his help in the forest. Sora thanks them both, touched by their kindness and consideration for him. Holding the quest form, Chris states that there are things to consider for long expeditions. Their 6-day journey will require ample food and plenty of healing potions. She warns that while the reward is high, their expenses could end up being higher. With their plans set, they will spend the day shopping and depart the next morning. Sora smiles, filled with a happy excitement for the adventure that lies ahead. He thinks to himself that even with so much to plan, it's all incredibly fun. That night, the quiet and cozy Aries Inn is bathed in the light of a starry sky. On the floor of Sora's room, a sack is packed with potions and supplies for the journey. Sora lies in bed, too excited about his first camping trip to fall asleep. He feels just like he did in elementary school the night before a big field trip. A soft, fluffy shape begins to materialize in the quiet darkness of his room. He gasps as his mysterious winged companion appears right beside his bed. He asks how it found him at the inn, wondering if it followed him out of concern. He smiles warmly, thanking the creature for worrying about him during his spar. The fluffy being puffs its cheeks and wiggles its ears in a cheerful response. He wonders aloud if the creature can actually understand what he is saying. He reaches out a hand intending to pet its impossibly soft, cloud-like fur. To his shock, his hand passes right through the creature as if it were an illusion. His eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes his hand went straight through it. Annoyed by the attempt, the creature puffs its cheeks angrily and zips away. Sora quickly apologizes, explaining that it just looked too soft to resist touching. He lies back down, exhausted but happy to have seen his mysterious friend again. As he begins to drift off, the creature floats quietly above his sleeping form. It then settles down gently on the pillow right beside his head, watching over him. Sora sleeps peacefully with a smile on his face, his fluffy guardian by his side. The next morning, Chris declares that it's a perfect day to set off on their adventure. Sora tells the others his fluffy companion was gone when he awoke, hoping to see it again. At the city gate, a guard calls out, asking to see their identification. The guard checks their cards, noting they are 2 D ranks and 1 E rank. He warns them to be careful, and the trio salutes in energetic agreement. The new chapter begins, titled Step 10, Types of Skills, as their journey starts. A map shows their destination, the village of Sai, is a 3-day walk to the south. 2 hours into their journey, they walk through a vast, empty grassland. Sora looks out at the tall, soft grass swaying gently in the breeze. Feeling a pang of guilt, but also a playful urge, he decides he wants to dive in. Chris looks on, amused and slightly confused by his strange, sudden declaration. With a triumphant shout of "Dive!" he leaps headfirst into the sea of green. Lying in the grass, he laughs and encourages the others to try it too. Sora and a hesitant Rurika watch as Chris considers his playful invitation. Soon all three are lying in the grass, enjoying the soft ground and the blue sky. Chris stretches happily, rolling around and exclaiming how wonderful it feels. She rolls into a muddy patch, crying out in surprise and disgust. Covered in mud, she sits up, lamenting that the ground was a swamp. Sora laughs and uses his purification magic to clean her in a flash of sparkling light. Rurika watches them with a soft, slightly blushing smile, amused by their antics. Her hands, however, tighten their grip on the heavy shaft of her staff. Sora realizes that using his life magic has drained a portion of his MP. He understands now that his various skills fall into different categories. Some skills drain MP, some drain SP, while others drain nothing at all. He visualizes how active magic like purification consumes his MP with each use. Meanwhile, detection skills like appraisal drain his SP as long as they are active. Passive skills like swordsmanship and body enhancement seem to have no resource cost. He recalls an experiment where using skills with 0 resources caused him to faint. He realizes that as long as he's walking, his SP doesn't decrease at all. His walking skill bestows a blessing of no fatigue, negating the stamina cost. This means he can use multiple detection skills at once while walking without any drain. A proud, confident smile spreads across his face as he understands the skill's true power. Suddenly, Chris spots a cloud of fluttering creatures and exclaims in wonder. They are colorful, butterfly-shaped beings hovering over a field of wildflowers. Sora wonders aloud if they are butterflies as he and Chris approach for a closer look. He focuses his gaze, activating his appraisal skill to identify the strange creatures. His eyes widen slightly as the information from his skill appears in his mind. The appraisal reveals they are not insects, but a plant called winged grass. He is amazed to learn they are plants and that they produce a fragrant nectar. A new exciting thought strikes him. He wants to try eating one of them. He turns to his companions, a new plan forming in his mind. He excitedly tells them it's a plant with drinkable nectar and asks if they want to try it. Rurika is shocked by the suggestion, but Chris smiles, intrigued by the idea. Rurika lowers her head, hiding her face behind her bangs in silent protest. Chris declares that she is curious what it tastes like, ignoring Rurika's hesitation. Rurika, flustered, finally agrees, though she seems less than enthusiastic about it. A small smile plays on her lips as she gives in to her friend's whim. With a cheerful cry, Chris leaps into the air and snatches one of the plants. Soon all three are happily catching the winged grass, their adventure just beginning. Chris points to a curled tube on the strange plant, explaining its secret. The three adventurers all take a sip from the flower-like plants. Their eyes widen in unison as a wave of incredible flavor hits them. Sora exclaims that the taste is sweet, fruity, and surprisingly complex. Chris happily confirms to Sora that the wing-like petals are edible too. She smiles, noting that she was just thinking about taking a break. With a brilliant idea, she suggests they make a delicious meal. Sora and Rurika are thrilled at the idea of their first campfire meal. Raising their arms in a cheer, they get ready to cook together. Chris explains the first step is to use the leaves for a salad. Sora hesitates, feeling oddly guilty about tearing apart a living plant. A wooden bowl is filled with the fresh wings of the plant. Sora puts a piece of the strange salad into his mouth. He chews, his expression one of pure delightful surprise. He shouts with joy, proclaiming that the salad is absolutely delicious. He marvels at the crisp texture and perfect sweet and sour taste. Chris agrees, suggesting the nectar would be great on their bread. Her eyes suddenly go wide with alarm as she spots something. A large, shaggy black cow is grazing peacefully in the distance. Chris's adventure instincts activate, telling Rurika it's time to move. Sora watches in shock, certain they are about to hunt the animal. The two girls charge across the field towards the wild beast. Rurika raises her ornate staff, preparing to cast a powerful spell. Chris holds out her hand, unleashing a gentle, non-lethal magic. The cow is now sleeping soundly as Chris calmly milks it. She expertly works, filling a wooden bucket with fresh milk. Sora stares, his jaw agape, realizing they are milking the cow. He stammers that he honestly thought they were going to kill it. Chris explains they avoid harming creatures unless they have to. Sora understands they are just borrowing a few of nature's resources. Their foraging continues as they discover a nest of translucent bird eggs. They mix the milk, eggs, and sweet winged grass nectar in a bowl. Thick slices of hard bread are left to soak in the rich mixture. Someone clears a patch of grass to prepare a small fire pit. Sora uses his life magic to effortlessly ignite a small campfire. He melts butter in the frying pan given to him by the vendor. He carefully places a soaked slice of bread into the sizzling pan. The bread cooks, turning a perfect, appetizing golden brown. The finished dish, French toast with winged grass syrup and leaves. Sora holds the plate, marveling at the sweet and fragrant aroma. Rurika and Chris present their own dishes, a galette and hot milk. The three friends say grace together before starting their wonderful meal. The vast blue sky stretches out endlessly above their small campsite. A gentle breeze blows across the plains, making the meal perfect. They all cheer, agreeing that eating outdoors is the absolute best. Sora happily notes how the sweet and sour leaves complete the dish. Chris is delighted, never expecting to eat so well on a journey. Sora's fluffy companion peeks out from behind Chris, watching them. Sora spots the small creature and calls out to it. He holds out his fork, offering his companion a piece of food. The creature zips forward, nimbly snatching the food from the air. Sora smiles to himself, thinking how adorable his companion is. The fluffy creature sits beside Rurika, happily munching on its treat. Sora praises the other dishes, which makes Chris beam with pride. Rurika admits she has trouble speaking to Sora, despite being friends. She looks down, embarrassed by her own shyness around him. Chris understands, explaining that Rurika just gets too nervous. Rurika wishes aloud that she had a convenient magic bag. Chris recalls that such bags are sold at auction, but are expensive. She then remembers hearing about a skill called spatial magic. With a playful wink, she declares that it's Rurika's specialty. Rurika becomes flustered, blushing under the sudden, intense pressure. She is frozen with stage fright, unable to form a single word. As Chris cheers her on, Rurika stammers that spatial magic is. Mortified, she admits that she bit her tongue in her nervousness. Chris and Sora look on, their expressions a mix of concern and confusion. Rurika's head hangs in shame, her long hair hiding her face. She sits under an imaginary spotlight of failure, apologizing profusely. Sora and Chris quickly reassure her, telling her it's okay. Rurika is still embarrassed, but their encouragement helps her recover. She explains that spatial magic allows one to manipulate space itself. She demonstrates its common application, which is storage magic. Sora realizes that this means food can be kept fresh forever. Rurika admits she's not skilled, but powerful users are highly valued. Chris praises her success, and Rurika becomes flustered but happy. Sora, beaming, declares that he wants to learn spatial magic too. Rurika looks on with a small, pleased smile on her face. Sora quietly considers the possibility of learning spatial magic. He checks his list of skills but finds it isn't available. He wonders how people normally learn skills since he uses points. He asks Chris, mentioning he just suddenly learned life magic. Rurika explains that it's common for magic to awaken unexpectedly. Sora understands that acquiring magic can often be a matter of luck. Rurika adds that some learn from grimoires written in special text. Sora thanks her for the helpful explanation, smiling brightly. A slightly awkward silence falls over the group after the discussion. Sora, sweating, tries to think of a way to break the tension. He leaps to his feet and shouts that his futon has blown away. Rurika and Chris can only stare back with blank, baffled expressions. The title card for Walking in Another World appears. The party continues their long journey, taking many breaks. Sora wonders how his friends endure the travel without his skill. He feels a strange, prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He glances over his shoulder, but sees nothing on the empty road. The three adventurers continue their walk across the vast landscape. He can't shake the persistent feeling that someone is watching him. Chris asks what's wrong, but he insists that it's nothing. He knows he's been watched ever since leaving the capital. He doubts it's the royal castle, as they have no reason. To counter the threat, he decides to acquire appraisal obstruction. To counter his unseen observer, Sora acquires the appraisal obstruction skill. The party continues their long journey under a vast cloud-dappled sky. As dusk approaches, Chris spots a large tree, suggesting it as their campsite. Sora's heart thrums with pure excitement for his first-ever camping experience. Chris announces they'll prepare dinner, but she has an important idea first. To improve teamwork, she suggests they all share their primary skills. Chris explains her abilities are mainly in body enhancement and exploration. Rurika quietly states that she uses life magic, along with fire and wind. Chris kindly tells Sora he doesn't have to reveal any secret skills. Sora realizes he doesn't need to tell them absolutely everything just yet. He worries his low-level skills would only be a burden in a fight. He takes a moment, carefully considering what he should share with them. He cheerfully declares he has life magic and good luck, making Chris laugh. With that settled, Chris begins slicing a loaf of bread for dinner. She explains that camp meals are usually simple soup, bread, and dried meat. The luxurious feast they enjoyed before, she notes, was a rare exception. With their simple but hearty meal prepared, they are ready to eat. Rurika laments the lack of flavor, explaining why spatial magic is so valued. The campfire crackles brightly as darkness finally envelops their small campsite. Chris looks up at the sky, observing that the sun has completely set. She proposes a watch schedule, asking if Sora can handle a shift alone. Sora confidently insists he'll be fine, thanks to his fatigue-negating skill. He adds he's far too excited from the journey to sleep just yet. Chris and Rurika gratefully accept his offer to take the first watch. Sora waves as his two companions head off to their tent to rest. Rurika settles into the tent, clutching her staff as she prepares for sleep. The fire continues to burn, a lone beacon in the deepening night. As Sora sits on watch, a soft voice suddenly calls out his name. He turns with a start to see Chris has quietly emerged from the tent. She whispers that she wants to talk with him alone, if it's okay. The chapter begins with the two of them alone by the crackling fire. Chris tells him there's something she wants to discuss. Just the two of them. A little surprised, Sora asks if it's all right for them to talk. Step 13, a night in the other world begins under the vast starry sky. Chris kneels by the fire, thanking Sora for his hard work on their first day. She admits she was worried he'd be tired, but he seems perfectly fine. It's to be expected, she smiles, for someone with such a grand dream. A blushing Sora stammers out a quiet thank you for her kind words. He exclaims that she and Rurika are truly amazing at camping. He asks what their most memorable experience has been in 3 years of travel. Chris ponders his question, her expression thoughtful as she searches her memory. She eventually recalls the fighting tournament she once attended in the Empire. Sora is surprised to hear she has been to the infamous Boss Isle Empire. She explains that it felt like a grotesque freak show and she hated it. Sora agrees that it doesn't sound like a very pleasant experience at all. But she quickly brightens, adding that there have been many good times too. The best part, she says, is seeing the smiles on their clients' faces. The thought of bringing people joy as an adventurer resonates deeply with him. He understands that feeling, even as a novice adventurer himself. He recalls the happiness on the faces of people like the inventor, Rai. The two of them share a quiet laugh, finding common ground in their work. A voice from the tent calls out to Sora, breaking the peaceful silence. It's Rurika, saying she's happy Sora is talking so openly with Chris. She's glad to see Chris making friends and thanks Sora for it. Sora insists the pleasure is all his. He's happy to travel with them. Chris agrees he's a good person, but then her expression turns serious. She looks him in the eye, warning that she'll never forgive him if he hurts Rurika. Sora is stunned by the sudden, fierce intensity in her protective gaze. Chris smiles, insisting that was all she wanted to say, and he did well. With a final wave, she wishes him a good night and returns to the tent. Sora waves back, wishing her a good night as she disappears from sight. The night grows deeper and quieter around the solitary campsite. Sora is left alone once more with the crackling flames of the fire. He sits in the quiet darkness, contemplating the weight of her words. He knows he absolutely cannot allow them to get hurt because of him. They are his first companions, and he vows to treasure them dearly. Back in Japan, he reflects, he never had such close bonds with anyone. Suddenly, his fluffy companion appears, startling him from his deep thoughts. The creature tumbles playfully through the air in a series of flips. It strikes a series of comical poses, clearly trying to cheer him up. It puffs up its chest in a mock-heroic stance, looking proud. After its performance, the creature floats gently up into the night sky. Sora looks after it, asking aloud if the little creature is all right. It responds with a cheerful puff, as if to reassure him completely. Sora smiles, glad that his little friend seems to be happy and well. The creature floats back down and nuzzles gently against his cheek. It floats beside him, a silent, comforting presence in the darkness. It seems to sparkle with joy as it keeps him company on his watch. Sora looks up at the sky, a look of confusion on his face. A sudden gust of wind seems to sweep through the peaceful clearing. The creature floats up into a sky breathtakingly full of brilliant stars. The star-dusted heavens stretch out in an endless, magnificent expanse. He whispers that it's beautiful, that he's never seen such a sight. He stares, completely captivated by the profound beauty of the night sky. He realizes this is the first time he has ever acted alongside others. He thinks of all the firsts he's experienced since arriving in this world. He decides he will do his best to connect with his new friends. He remembers them sleeping peacefully, and his resolve hardens with purpose. He vows to be a sincere and true friend to his precious companions. The sun rises over the mountains, signaling the start of a new day. Sora is still fast asleep in his bedroll next to the large tree. The warm light of the morning sun shines on his peaceful, sleeping face. His eyes snap open as he suddenly wakes from his deep slumber. He's greeted by the startling, upside-down faces of Chris and Rurika. Chris cheerfully announces that she's going to toast some bread for breakfast. Rurika notices he's still groggy and asks if he's washed his face yet. She uses her purification magic to splash him awake with a jet of water. Startled but refreshed, he thanks Rurika for the unique wake-up call. Rurika becomes incredibly flustered by her own sudden, bold action. Overcome with embarrassment, she turns and hurries away as the new day begins. The new chapter begins, showing the party's cheerful morning after a night of camping. Chris rallies her companions, declaring with a grin that it's another great day for walking. Sora marches onward, his sturdy boots treading the well-worn path. As he walks, he notices a familiar notification appear in his vision. He's pleased to see he's reached level 18, a welcome sign of progress. His eyes widen as he sees a new, incredible skill available to him, spatial magic. He recalls Rurika's explanation of the magic that allows one to manipulate space itself. Realizing its immense utility for a traveler, he knows he absolutely must acquire it. With a mental command, he spends a skill point, and the new magic is his. He immediately decides to test it, attempting to store his entire heavy backpack. Focusing his will, he invokes the power of his new storage magic. A system message appears before him, but his backpack remains stubbornly on his shoulders. The message explains that at level 1, the skill cannot store such a large item. He understands now that the magic has a size limit he must overcome by leveling up. Undeterred, he decides to store his smaller emergency rations to practice the skill. The rations vanish in a flash, successfully sent to his new pocket dimension. Feeling empowered, he also decides to learn parallel thinking and natural recovery up. Chris notices he's slowed down, asking if he's all right, and he quickly apologizes. As they continue, a notification confirms his acquisition of the new support skills. He wisely decides to keep his new abilities a secret until he has mastered them. The party continues their long journey, walking across the vast open plains. They make their way toward a line of trees marking the edge of a forest. After a long day of travel, they set up camp for the night. 2 more days pass as they press on toward their destination. Now deep within the forest, Sora remarks that the village must be hidden well. Rurika consults her map, confirming that the logging village of Sai should be nearby. They finally arrive only to be greeted by a shattered and dilapidated wooden fence. Before them lies the village of Sai, a desolate and eerily quiet settlement. Sora feels a growing unease, and Rurika agrees this is no simple goblin quest. A small, frightened boy peeks out at them from behind the broken fence. Recognizing their gear, the boy's eyes widen as he identifies them as adventurers. He turns and runs, shouting for the village chief to announce their arrival. The party watches him go, their faces etched with deep concern for the village. They follow the boy through the ransacked settlement, taking in the grim sight. They are led to a large wooden building where the other villagers have gathered. Inside, they kneel before the village chief, an ancient man burdened by sorrow. The 3 adventurers listen intently, preparing for the worst. The old chief struggles to find the words to explain their plight. With a choked voice, he finally offers them a desperate, heartfelt apology. Sora, Chris, and Rurika are stunned into silence by his unexpected words. The chief explains that constant goblin attacks have pushed the village to its limit. Chris points out that the quest form only listed 5 goblins. The chief confirms that at first there were only a few, but their numbers kept growing. Rurika and Chris listen with empathy, understanding the village's tragic situation. Chris asks why they didn't update the quest, which was posted a month ago. Sora and Rurika realize the high reward was a sign of the village's desperation. The chief explains they were too besieged and impoverished to even send a messenger. With a grim expression, Chris asks the crucial question, how many goblins are there now? The chief looks down, his voice barely a whisper as he guesses there might be 10. Chris is shocked, exclaiming that 10 is an overwhelming number for them to face. The chief shakes his head, correcting himself. No, there are closer to 20. Chris's face pales, sweat beading on her brow as she processes the impossible number. The old man finally confesses the horrifying truth. He was lying. There are 30 of them. The party is horrified, realizing they have been tricked into an unwinnable battle. As the sun sets, a heavy sense of dread falls over the troubled village. Later that night, Chris and Rurika sleep, exhausted by the day's shocking news. Sora sits awake, alone, contemplating the deadly mission that awaits them. His expression is grim as he mentally prepares himself for the fight to come. He recalls asking the chief how frequently the goblin raids occurred. The chief had explained that the next attack would likely be in a few days. Chris had made the decision. They would rest tonight and attack tomorrow. Sora understands at this time he is consciously choosing to risk his life for others. His hand trembles on his sword as he questions if he is strong enough. Suddenly, a small figure steps out of the darkness and approaches him. It's the young village boy calling out to him with a hopeful voice. With tears in his eyes, the boy thanks Sora for coming to their aid. Sora looks on silently, his heart aching for the child's suffering. He takes in the boy's tattered clothes and the weariness in his small frame. He glances around at the broken fences and ransacked homes of the village. Overturned pots and scattered debris are a testament to the goblins' raids. Sora watches the boy, his expression softening with a deep sense of empathy. The boy begins to cry, his small hands clasped nervously before him. He sobs that the goblins killed all the village chickens, even his favorite, Pyokachi. A cold anger rises in Sora. He finds the goblin's sadistic cruelty unforgivable. His eyes widen in alarm as he notices something on the boy's arm. He sees a series of deep, ugly scratches covering the child's forearm. The boy tries to reassure him, saying he's fine and that others are hurt too. Sora's gaze hardens with a fierce, protective determination to help this child. He quickly unclips a small pouch from his belt. From it, he pulls a small, ornate bottle containing a healing potion. He gently pours the glowing liquid over the boy's wounds. In a soft flash of magical light, the deep cuts heal and vanish completely. The boy stares at his now smooth arm in utter, breathless amazement. Sora kneels down, telling the boy to share the potion with the other villagers. The boy protests, knowing that such a potion must be incredibly expensive. Sora smiles, leaning in to tell the boy that it's a secret just between them. Clutching the precious bottle, the boy whispers a heartfelt and sincere thank you. He promises that although he can't fight, he will cheer for them with all his might. Sora's hand tightens into a fist, the boy's words solidifying his resolve. He feels a surge of purpose, his own fears washed away by his duty to protect. Looking the boy in the eye, he gives a firm, reassuring nod. The next morning, the entire village has gathered to see the adventurers off. The chief bows, telling the party that they will all be praying for their safe return. The three adventurers step into the tall grass at the edge of the forest. They walk with grim purpose, their boots rustling the leaves as they move. Chris uses her skills to scan the area, sensing a large group to the southwest. She apologizes to Sora, feeling guilty that his first quest has become so dangerous. Sora is resolute, stating they must do their best to help the villagers. Inspired by his courage, Rurika declares she will support them with all her strength. Sora swallows hard, his expression firm as he prepares for the coming battle. Against the backdrop of a cloudy sky, Sora steels his resolve for the coming battle. He begins to announce the plan to assault the goblin nest at the forest's edge. First, he explains, Rurika will use her magic to throw the goblins into a state of confusion. Rurika unleashes a powerful vortex of wind, blasting into the dark mouth of the cave. Thrown into a blind panic, the goblins begin to pour out of their nest. As the creatures emerge, Chris leaps into the air, her sword held high. She declares that she will be the one to strike down the main horde. Chris and Rurika will work in tandem to handle the large group of goblins. Sora's role is to hang back, watching for any creatures that stray from the fight. He must target and eliminate any goblin that gets separated from the main group. With the strategy set, Sora grips his sword tightly, his heart pounding in anticipation. He follows two goblins into the woods as the main battle rages on behind him. Seeing them up close, he is struck by how surprisingly weak and frail they appear. One of the creatures turns to face him, its expression twisted into a malevolent snarl. The grim reality of the situation hits him, and he freezes in a moment of horror. He realizes with dawning dread that he must kill this living, breathing creature. From the heart of the battle, Chris's voice cuts through his fear, calling his name. She tells him that she understands what he's thinking, but he must not hesitate. She asks him to consider the fate of the villagers if they were to fail here. A stark image of the ransacked village flashes through his mind, a grim reminder. Chris declares that while no one can truly judge what is right or wrong in war, and at the very least they do not wish to see anyone suffer. A painful memory of her own past fuels her words with powerful conviction. Chris's words find their mark, clearing the doubt and fear from Sora's mind. He remembers the hopeful, tear-filled eyes of the young village boy he promised to help. His moment of reflection is shattered as the goblin lunges, its claws outstretched. His hesitation gone, Sora grits his teeth in grim, newfound determination. In a single fluid motion, his sword flashes, cutting down the creature before him. His gaze is now steady and clear, his hesitation replaced by hardened resolve. He moves with purpose, striking down another goblin with a clean, decisive blow. The battle is over, the ground littered with the bodies of the slain goblins. Chris and Rurika approach, telling Sora that the fight is over and he did well. Chris's expression then shifts to one of concern as she looks at Sora's face. She points out that he's bleeding from a fresh gash on his cheek. He tries to brush it off, insisting that it's just a minor scratch. Rurika approaches with a potion, but he tells her not to waste it. She ignores his protests, gently taking his hand to steady him. Sora is surprised by her sudden, gentle touch and her quiet concern for him. The adrenaline finally leaves him, and his legs buckle, sending him to his knees. Rurika kneels beside him, carefully wiping the blood from the wound on his cheek. She then prepares a clean strip of cloth to use as a bandage for his injury. With surprising gentleness, she ties the makeshift bandage around his head. A bit flustered by her kindness, Sora quietly thanks her for her help. Rurika looks at him, her expression soft with unspoken worry. Watching the two of them, Chris breaks into a warm and knowing smile. Afterwards, they gather the bodies of the fallen goblins for a funeral pyre. Chris explains that this prevents the corpses from becoming undead or attracting monsters. She adds that it is also a ritual to show respect for the lives they took. Their grim task complete, they return to the village of Sai to report their success. Chris informs the village chief that they have successfully subjugated 34 goblins. The old chief is overcome with emotion, his body trembling with relief. He thanks them profusely, telling them that thanks to them, the village is saved. Chris lightly scolds him for misrepresenting the quest's true danger. The chief insists they stay, as the village has prepared a feast in their honor. As night falls, the celebration begins under the light of a crescent moon. The three adventurers are crowned with wreaths of flowers, treated as guests of honor. The entire village celebrates, their despair replaced by a wave of joyous relief. A mother thanks them, explaining her child was nearly taken by the goblins. Other villagers express their gratitude, having lost precious livestock to the raids. A crowd of villagers eagerly gathers, all wanting to offer their personal thanks. The entire village raises their voices and their mugs in a massive, joyous cheer. Sora, Chris, and Rurika are completely overwhelmed by the outpouring of gratitude. Amidst the celebration, the young boy Sora helped earlier tugs on his sleeve. Sora turns to see the small boy looking up at him with wide, earnest eyes. The boy gives him a huge, radiant smile, thanking him again for saving them. He explains that because of them, he can finally play with his friends again. He then notices the bandage on Sora's head, his expression turning to worry. Sora quickly reassures him, saying his reliable companions patched him up. The boy sighs in relief, happy that his newfound hero is going to be okay. He then declares that he wants to become an adventurer just like Sora when he grows up. He says he wants to get strong enough to protect the whole village by himself. Sora is visibly moved by the boy's heartfelt and courageous declaration. He smiles and gently ruffles the young boy's messy hair. Sora tells the boy that he can definitely achieve his dream, guaranteeing it. He adds that he will have to get stronger too, just to keep up with him. Overjoyed by the encouragement, the boy thanks him before calling to his friends. He runs to his friends, excitedly telling them about his new goal. He shouts that they are now going to play a new game of adventures. He strikes a determined pose, ready to play act his future dream. The boy and his friends run off to play their new game together. Sora reflects that today, for the first time, he took a life of his own will. He admits that even though they were a threat, he had hesitated to kill. He then sees the children laughing and playing freely, their fear gone. He realizes that by taking a life, he was able to protect their smiles. He knows with certainty that he will never forget the events of this day. He tries some of the local food and is stunned by how delicious it is. He exclaims that it is a flavor he has never experienced before in his life. Chris offers him a plate of thick, striped meat, the village's specialty. She enthusiastically encourages him to try a piece of the delicious-looking dish. He looks at the food, recognizing it as a type of bacon from his old world. He takes a bite and is overwhelmed by the rich, savory flavor. The nostalgic taste of home brings tears to his eyes, much to Rurika's amusement. Chris asks the village chief about the wonderful food they are eating. The chief explains it is a local specialty that rarely leaves the village. Sora is surprised to learn that bacon is considered such a rarity in this world. Suddenly, Sora's fluffy winged companion materializes near the village chief. Sora notes with amusement that the strange, cute creature has followed them again. The chief, noticing its interest in the food, kindly offers it a piece. He then generously offers the entire platter for the creature to enjoy. In a single, surprising flash, the creature devours the entire platter of bacon. A villager turns to his friends asking if they saw that. The platter of meat has vanished from the celebratory feast table. Sora panics, realizing his fluffy companion is invisible to everyone else. The other villagers stare in stunned disbelief at the empty space. The village chief, his eyes wide with awe, makes a declaration. He points a trembling finger, his voice filled with reverence. He booms to the entire crowd that it is the work of a spirit. The villagers gasp in unison, their faces filled with shock and wonder. The little fluffy creature, startled by the sudden commotion, looks nervous. It sweats, feeling the pressure of all the unseen eyes upon it. The villagers crowd around, exclaiming that there is truly nothing there. Their hands pass right through the intangible and terrified little creature. Sora watches as his companion, overwhelmed, zips away into the night. Chris is completely baffled by the villagers' sudden, joyous uproar. The chief explains this phenomenon is known as a fairy's prank. In years when this occurs, he says, the harvest is always bountiful. The party listens, fascinated by the hopeful local folklore. With eyes closed in reverence, the chief declares it a joyous day. The feast has been a great success, leaving only empty plates behind. The village erupts into a massive celebration, dancing around a bonfire. Sora and Rurika sit together, full and content after the meal. Sora quietly wonders about the true identity of his fluffy companion. He turns to his friends asking what they know about fairies and spirits. Rurika confirms that both mystical beings are said to exist in lore. She describes fairies as having a human-like form with wings. They understand human language but are known for being mischievous pranksters. Spirits, she continues, are related to elves and have no fixed form. They can even communicate telepathically with users of spirit magic. Sora is genuinely impressed by Rurika's extensive knowledge on the subject. He compliments her, amazed she knows so much beyond just combat magic. Rurika becomes flustered by his praise, unsure how to respond. Sora concludes that his companion is most likely a spirit. Just then, Chris returns, calling out to Sora with exciting news. She winks, announcing the village chief is sharing some of the meat. Sora and Rurika's faces light up, overjoyed at the generous offer. They follow the chief to the village smokehouse under the starry sky. Inside, they are stunned to see dozens of cured meats hanging. Sora, fascinated, points to one and asks how it is made. The chief explains it is simply meat smoked with local wood. He gestures grandly, beginning a detailed explanation of the process. The party learns the secret is the uniquely fragrant local wood. Sora eagerly asks if he can buy some of the special wood. He explains the meat was so delicious he wants to try making it. The chief laughs, saying the wood is too plentiful to charge for. He gestures to a massive pile of firewood, offering it to them. Sora thanks him gratefully as the chief turns to leave them. He gathers a small bundle, figuring it's all he can carry. Chris points out they can't possibly carry that much for 3 days. Sora just smiles knowingly, replying that he has a solution. He activates his storage magic, and the entire pile vanishes instantly. Chris and Rurika stare in absolute shock at the impossible feat. Chris stammers, asking if he just used the legendary spatial magic. Sora confirms her suspicions with a proud and happy smile. Both girls are amazed, exclaiming how incredible his skill is. Chris declares that with such a skill, he'll be a hot commodity. Sora asks if they can please keep his new magic a secret. Chris is confused, wondering why he'd hide such a valuable skill. He explains that even with the magic, he is still very weak. Joining a high-ranked party now would only make him a burden. He wants to gain more experience and truly master his skills first. Chris understands his reasoning and agrees to keep his secret. Sora is relieved and thanks her for her understanding. Chris asks why he wanted to keep it so secret. He confirms it. He smiles, admitting if he joined another party, he'd miss them. He confesses that he still wants to continue adventuring with them. His heartfelt words leave Chris and Rurika stunned and blushing. Chris suddenly grabs him, her expression a mix of shock and emotion. She shouts that of course she feels the same way too. She storms off, flustered, leaving Rurika watching in silence. Sora then gently takes Rurika's hands in his own. The two of them share a quiet, unspoken moment of understanding. As they leave, Chris says she is looking forward to his cooking. The next morning, their journey back to the capital finally begins. The party waves goodbye to the cheering, grateful villagers of Sai. The villagers generously provided them with food for the return trip. The journey back is relaxed, filled with nonsensical, fun conversations. As dusk falls, the sun sets over the forest treetops. Rurika finds a suitable clearing for them to make camp for the night. Chris eagerly asks Sora to cook their dinner as he promised. Rurika playfully offers to make a backup meal just in case. Sora laughs, telling them not to raise their expectations too high. Sora stands before their provisions, planning what to cook for them. He examines the ingredients, thinking of a dish he can make. Holding his knife, he decides on a plan for their meal. He begins by peeling the strange marbled potato from the village. He recognizes its texture as being similar to a regular potato. Slicing it open reveals a normal interior beneath the patterned skin. He thinks about microwaving the chopped potatoes, but they have none. Instead, he boils the chunks with salt and water to soften them. He tastes a piece, noting its pleasant, slightly sweet flavor. He sets the cooked potatoes aside on a wooden plate. He then presents the main event, a thick slab of bacon. He slices the bacon and fries it until it's perfectly crisp. The savory aroma wafts over to Chris and Rurika, who are starving. They comment on the delicious smell and the sound of sizzling oil. Sora smiles, telling them it will be ready in just a moment. He adds the cooked potatoes back into the pan with the bacon. With the dish complete, he serves a plate to each of them. He proudly presents his creation, a heaping plate of German potatoes. Chris and Rurika stare at the meal, their eyes sparkling with delight. Sora presents his finished meal, suggesting they eat it with the soup Chris prepared. Chris and Rurika are both amazed by the delicious, fluffy texture of his cooking. Sora savors his creation, noting the perfect balance of sweet potato and savory bacon. Chris praises his skill, asking where he learned to make such wonderful dishes. He explains his mother taught him, believing that boys should also know how to cook. He fondly recalls how his mother's praise always encouraged him to cook more often. Rurika, touched by his story, remarks that he must have a truly wonderful mother. Sora compliments Chris's soup, and Rurika agrees her hard work really paid off. Rurika declares Sora's dish superior, but he insists Chris's cooking is more delicious. The three of them engage in a friendly argument over who is the better cook. Sora and Rurika turn to Chris, demanding she be the judge of their contest. Chris, put on the spot, hesitates, unsure how to answer without hurting any feelings. She throws her arms up triumphantly, declaring that both dishes are winners. Sora and Rurika share a slightly embarrassed but happy look after their silly argument. The three friends share a moment of pure, happy laughter, their bond growing stronger. Sora thinks to himself how much fun this is, wishing it could last forever. Chris asks him to continue being in their party for as long as they remain. Sora, holding his bowl, asks them about their journey and their future plans. Chris then asks him how long he plans to stay in this country with them. The serious question hangs in the air, a quiet note in their happy meal. Chris explains their goal is to reach C rank before moving on to another country. Sora understands, accepting the reality that their time together has an eventual end. Chris clarifies they still need more quests and will be here for a while. She turns to him, a sincere look on her face with more to say. More than anything, she tells him, spending every day with him is so much fun. Sora listens, his expression serious as he processes her heartfelt words. With a bright, warm smile, she asks him to stay with them a while longer. Sora, his face flushed with happiness, readily agrees to continue their journey together. That night, he looks at the mountains, knowing their separation is drawing closer. He resolves that he must improve his skills and level up to become much stronger. He must be strong enough to survive alone so he can smile at their parting. At the guild, Mikal greets them with a cheerful and energetic, "Welcome back, everyone." Sora notes Mikal's high spirits as he tells her they've returned to the capital. He presents her with a heavy sack, and she is shocked by its contents. She exclaims at the sheer number of goblin magic stones, far more than expected. Mikal says the quest must have been hard and notices the scratch on Sora's cheek. Relieved he's okay, she offers to exchange the stones for a small spirit stone. Sora is flustered by her kindness, unsure how to respond to the bonus offer. He stammers that he's fine and doesn't need the extra reward for his trouble. He feels a bit embarrassed by the concerned attention from Mikal and the girls. Chris changes the subject, asking Mikal what happened with the menacing wolf pack. Mikal beams proudly, announcing the wolf subjugation mission has been successfully completed. Chris is relieved by the good news, asking if any stronger wolves escaped. Mikal firmly tells her that no, not a single strong one got away. She explains that a high-ranking individual was leading the pack, just as predicted. Thanks to many B and C rank parties cooperating, the threat was swiftly resolved. The party is shocked to learn a high-ranking wolf was leading the monster horde. Rurika finds it unsettling for such a creature to appear so near the capital. Sora agrees with her, a worried expression on his face as he thinks. The three of them stand outside the guild, their difficult quest officially complete. They decide to take the next 2 days off and will meet up again then. Sora walks through the city streets, heading back to his inn for a rest. His fluffy companion suddenly appears, floating curiously beside him as he walks. He smiles and invites the little creature to come home with him for the night. He arrives back at the familiar and comforting sight of Ori's inn. Utterly exhausted from the journey, he collapses onto his bed with a loud thud. Lying there, his mind drifts back to the events of the past few days. He clenches his fist, vividly recalling the feeling of his sword cutting a goblin. A jolt of fear runs through him as he remembers the chaos of the battle. He knows that without Chris and Rurika, he might have died in that fight. He berates himself for his weakness against even the most pathetic of goblins. He resolves to train, use his skills, and walk to get stronger. He suddenly sits up, realizing how much walking the quest involved, gaining experience. He eagerly opens his status screen to see just how much he has grown. He's amazed to see he's reached level 20, with many of his skills leveled. He smiles, pleased that all his walking and skill use paid off so well. He notes that parallel thinking and natural recovery up were especially useful skills. Using parallel thinking felt like splitting his consciousness into a left and right half. He could let his left side sleep while his right side kept watch. This allowed him to effectively play two roles at once, resting while on guard. However, using multiple low-level skills at once had its own set of dangers. He recalls his SP running out, his vision blacking out as skills deactivated. He was saved by his natural recovery up skill, which quickly restored his stats. He muses that while stats recover over time, this skill is incredibly helpful. He reflects on how he arrived with nothing, but now has skills and companions. He realizes with a jolt of excitement that his new life is going well. But as he studies his status, he notices something has changed and pauses. He sees the experience cap for his walking skill has increased significantly at level 20. He understands that as his level rises, growing stronger will become much harder. He decides to save his skill points for now, resisting the urge to learn more. He sighs, realizing he still has so much to figure out and learn. As he runs a hand through his hair, he touches his cheek and remembers. He recalls the wound he received during the intense battle with the goblin horde. He gently peels off the bandage Rurika had so carefully applied to his face. Thanks to his natural recovery up skill, the scratch has already completely healed. He remembers the moment Rurika gently tended to his wound after the fight. He looks at the bandage in his hands, a faint blush on his cheeks. He holds the strip of cloth, a memento of her kindness and their adventure. His fluffy companion floats over, a smug look on its face, seeing him. It begins to mimic wrapping a bandage around its own little fluffy head. The creature then playfully forms its wing-like ears into the shape of a heart. Sora, flustered, points at it, accusing it of laughing at his expense. He playfully tells it not to look, warning it will get a bald spot. He thinks about his day off, deciding to look for a new quest. His eyes widen as he suddenly remembers the mystery surrounding his fluffy companion. He recalls the villagers calling it a spirit, but he still doesn't know. He stands up, determined to finally learn its true identity using his skill. The skill activates, but the result is a message he's never seen before. He shouts in frustration, realizing this world is still full of wondrous mysteries. A new chapter begins, titled A Triangle Relationship, hinting at future complications. Several weeks have passed since the goblin subjugation mission ended. Sora greets the vendor, planning to meet his friends later. He thanks the man, but his fluffy companion snatches the food. The vendor is confused as Sora realizes his friend ate it. The creature, Momomo, has grown very fond of this world's food. It especially loves the French toast and bacon from their trip. Sora gently scolds his companion for eating in front of people. The little creature trembles, startled by his sudden chiding. It suddenly flies away, and Sora wonders where it is going. He realizes Momomo always seems to avoid the royal castle. He arrives at the Grand Adventurers Guild, a familiar sight. Inside, Sifon and Argo greet Sora with a friendly wave. Sora is surprised to see them drinking so early in the day. He explains he's just waiting for Chris and Rurika to arrive. Sifon kindly orders a juice for him from the tavern waitress. The tavern is filled with adventurers enjoying a midday break. Argo leans in, a mischievous glint shining in his eye. He asks how Sora is doing, envying his beautiful party members. Sora happily recounts their recent quest fighting giant insect monsters. He also mentions dismantling beasts and taking on solo delivery jobs. He tells them he's been gathering medicinal herbs in his spare time. Sifon wonders if he's found a particularly good harvesting spot. To deflect, Sora reveals he has the rare appraisal skill. He nervously sips his juice, saying he tries not to stand out. Argo and Sifon exchange a knowing, unconvinced look. Argo slams the table, shouting that's not what he meant. He wants to know Sora's relationship with the two beautiful girls. He crudely comments on Rurika's bust and Chris's intense nature. A flustered Sora tells him to stop looking at them that way. Argo presses on, asking which one of them he is dating. Siphon leans in close, asking if there's one he likes. Sora blushes, stammering that he is interested in someone. A memory of Rurika enjoying a meal flashes through his mind. Overwhelmed, he can't find the words to answer their teasing. Argo and Siphon grin, thoroughly enjoying his embarrassment. The tavern door creaks open, signaling a welcome interruption. Chris and Rurika arrive and Sora shouts a relieved greeting. Argo grabs Sora's arm, telling him not to run away just yet. He turns to the girls, inviting them for a drink. The trio shares a look of complete deadpan annoyance. Soon all 5 of them are seated together at the table. An awkward, subtle distance now separates Sora and Rurika. Argo and Siphon watch the tension with growing amusement. Siphon suggests that Argo should be the one to break the ice. Argo turns his attention to Rurika, leaning in to talk. He calls her cute and bluntly asks if she has a boyfriend. Chris's eyes widen in alarm at his incredibly forward question. Sora jumps up, telling Argo that his behavior is not okay. Argo innocently asks what's wrong with complimenting a cute girl. Sora stammers, admitting that she is cute, but that's not the point. Argo suggests that if Sora were her boyfriend, he could intervene. He then asks if Sora's relationship is with Chris instead. He gets uncomfortably close to Rurika, asking what she thinks of him. With a simple stop, Chris brings her sword down on Argo's head. She explains that while she understands his feelings, she was getting startled. Argo apologizes sheepishly, nursing the large new bump on his head. Sora lets out a quiet sigh of relief, his cheeks still flushed. He and Rurika share a brief, sparkling, and very awkward moment. They both stammer nervously, unable to make proper eye contact. The empty mugs on the table mark the end of the commotion. After a while, they all wave goodbye to their rowdy friends. Standing before the quest board, Sora asks what they should do next. Chris says there is something she needs to confirm with him first. She notes that Sora is still E rank, but close to ranking up. The 2 girls listen, their expressions growing increasingly somber. Chris reveals that they will likely reach C rank on their next quest. She explains that once that happens, it will be time to part ways. Sora clenches his fist, knowing this inevitable day was coming. He had wished this happy, fleeting time could continue on forever. But time marches on, and their precious days together are numbered. As Sora completes more quests, his guild card begins to glow. The swirling script finally resolves, declaring him a D-rank adventurer. Sora stares at his new card, a mix of pride and sadness. Chris and Mikhail congratulate him, as Chris reveals her own promotion. Sora acknowledges that with this, their party is officially disbanded. He asks his friends what their plans are now that they've ranked up. Chris shows him their next quest, an escort mission to Phoenix. Sora wonders what an escort mission would be like for an adventurer. He turns to his friends, a new and hopeful idea forming in his mind. He asks if he can join them on this final mission together. Chris and Rurika are surprised by his sudden, earnest request. Sora explains he wants to gain experience as an escort. He promises not to be a burden and will return on his own. The girls exchange a look, then break into warm smiles. They agree, suggesting they confirm if a 3-person party is allowed. At the counter, Mikkel confirms they can accept the C-rank quest. With their departure set for 5 days, the girls decide to rest. Sora, however, feels too restless and anxious to relax. He throws himself into his work, taking on more deliveries than ever. He thinks about his friends, who were driven from their home by war. He wonders what could be the true purpose behind their endless journey. With his last package in hand, he heads to his final stop. He makes his way down the familiar cobblestone street. He arrives in the city's lavish and unfamiliar entertainment district. He sees rich gamblers and partiers through the windows of a casino. The district is filled with people enjoying the city's nightlife. Sora is completely shocked by the decadent, unfamiliar atmosphere. He spots Argo, who offers to show him a good time. Sora frantically explains he's only here to make a delivery. Argo teases him for working so hard even late at night. While making a delivery, Sora is swarmed by 2 colorfully dressed women. Completely flustered, he stammers, unable to form a coherent sentence. He makes a frantic escape, shouting that he is still on the job. He pauses a moment later, his face still flushed with embarrassment. With his work done, he decides it's time to head back. He looks around the unfamiliar streets, trying to recall the way to the guild. As he walks, he spots a familiar hooded figure in a side alley. It is Rurika, and she appears to be in some kind of trouble. Sora is shocked, wondering why she is alone in the entertainment district. A brutish man grabs her wrist, forcibly taking a pouch of money. Sora stares in disbelief, his mind struggling to process the scene. Rurika, her face etched with fear, pleads with the man to stop. His shock quickly turns to alarm as he realizes the danger she is in. In a moment of pure panic, he instinctively shouts out for Chris. Startled by his voice, Rurika's eyes widen in surprise. Chris appears, running down the alley and calling out to Sora. She thanks him, expressing her relief that he is safe and sound. Rurika stands silently by, still looking shaken from the encounter. Sora says he is glad she is okay, but admits he's surprised to see her. With the danger past, Rurika asks Sora what he is doing here. He stammers for a moment, caught off guard by her question. Rurika worries he might think she was doing something wrong. He quickly insists it's a misunderstanding. He was just making a delivery. She quietly accepts his explanation, still looking downcast and troubled. She asks if he will meet her and Chris after he is finished. Later that evening, the scene shifts to a quiet, starlit tea house. Chris exclaims in disbelief that Rurika went to the slave traders district alone. Sora sits opposite them, thanking Rurika for protecting Chris. Chris sternly tells Rurika not to do such dangerous things and Rurika apologizes. Rurika clenches her hands, saying she always leaves things to Chris. She quietly expresses her heartfelt desire to be more useful. Chris looks at her with a soft, grateful expression and thanks her. Rurika insists that they must remain vigilant in such a dangerous world. Sora watches them, realizing it's the first time he's seen Rurika truly angry. He asks them what it was they wanted to talk to him about. Chris and Rurika exchange a serious, meaningful look between them. Chris explains they've wanted to speak with him for a while now. Rurika takes a deep breath and begins, saying they are searching for someone. Sora is surprised and asks who it is they are looking for. He listens intently as she explains they were separated by the war. Chris and Rurika reveal they are searching for their childhood friends. The story delves into their past as Sora asks about their search. Rurika begins her tale, recalling the war that started 10 years ago. A flashback shows their peaceful hometown being destroyed by explosions. Amidst the rubble, a group of terrified children huddle together. A young hooded Rurika is sobbing, overwhelmed by fear and chaos. Her friends Sarah and Eris try their best to comfort her. The four of them, Rurika explains, were always together. A village elder bursts in, warning them that the Empire is attacking. The four young girls look up in shock and utter confusion. The elder gasps for breath, saying the front lines have fallen. She screams at them all to run to the safety of the forest. Eris declares that they must not be captured no matter what. The villagers flee in a chaotic stampede, their faces masks of terror. In the crush of the crowd, Sarah calls out to Eris. The panicked villagers scatter in every direction, desperate to escape. Sarah shouts for them to meet at the ancient camphor tree nearby. Rurika reaches out a hand, her face filled with terror. She is jostled and pushed by the desperate, fleeing crowd. In the chaos, she is swept away, separated from her friends. The scene shifts to the quiet, sun-dappled canopy of the forest. The camera focuses on a massive, gnarled camphor tree. A small pair of legs runs desperately toward the ancient tree. Young Rurika arrives, announcing she's made it to the meeting spot. She stands alone, looking around and wondering where everyone is. She then spots a small, collapsed figure at the base of the tree. Her dirt-smudged face lights up as she whispers Chris's name. She runs towards her friend, her arms outstretched in relief. She throws her arms around Chris in a desperate, powerful hug. They cling to each other and weep, knowing their other friends were lost. Back in the present, Chris says they travel to find those precious friends. Sora is deeply moved, murmuring about their incredibly painful past. Chris tries to lighten the mood with a bit of text. She playfully teases Rurika about being the only proof they were friends. Rurika explains that this shared past is why they care for each other so much. Sora, his expression soft, thanks them for sharing their story with him. He then asks if they have any leads to help them in their search. Chris somberly explains that captured children are often sold into slavery. A map shows the 7 nations. They don't know where their friends could be. That is why they became adventurers, to gather information as they travel. Rurika adds that before leaving the capital, she made a special request. She paid the slave trader to contact the guild if he hears of Sarah or Eris. She admits that she needs to be more careful in the future. Sora listens, understanding the immense, near-impossible difficulty of their task. He hesitates, knowing he is about to say something harsh but true. He points out that after 10 years, there is no guarantee they are alive. He asks how they can still believe their friends are out there. In response, Chris and Rurika simply share a knowing, gentle smile. They each place a hand on the table, their palms facing up. In each of their hands rests a small teardrop-shaped charm. The 2 identical charms are intricately carved with a floral design. Sora stares at the glowing amulets, asking what they are. The charms are shown to be 2 parts of a 4-leaf clover set. Chris explains that the amulets tell their hearts their friends are alive. She admits she doesn't know how, but she can feel it. She says that while she wants to stay with him, their journey must continue. Sora reflects on their story, finally understanding their true motivation. He realizes they are far stronger than him, facing any danger for their friends. He declares that he is proud to be in a party with them. He vows to support them, promising to search for clues as he travels. Chris and Rurika are shocked, Rurika insisting it is wrong to involve Sora. With a gentle smile, Sora shakes his head, telling them they are both mistaken. He leans forward, explaining that he is doing this simply because he wants to help. His heartfelt words leave both Chris and Rurika completely speechless. A single tear of emotion traces a path down Rurika's cheek. Sora's hand rests on the checkered tabletop, an open offer of support. Their hands reach out to clasp his, sealing their pact of friendship. Sora looks on, his expression one of steady, unwavering resolve. Overcome with emotion, Chris and Rurika weep, thanking him for his kindness. With 3 days until their departure, Sora enjoys some rare time to himself. He wakes up cheerfully, realizing his key perception skill leveled up overnight. He now understands the feeling of being watched as a deliberate surveillance. Wondering who could be monitoring him, he decides to learn some new skills. A notification confirms he's learned Kai concealment, alchemy, and cooking. He decides to feign ignorance of his observer to avoid provoking them. He muses that on a long journey through this world, good food is essential. His knowledge of this new world's unique culinary ingredients has grown. He sets out into the wilderness, his fluffy companion floating at his side. He decides to test his new skills in the forest near the capital. He finds a good spot in a clearing and sets down his large pack. But before he begins his experiments, he decides to have a quick snack. He happily prepares to eat the last piece of bacon from his storage. He summons the precious slice of bacon from his spatial inventory. He looks down at the meat, a confused expression on his face. To his absolute horror, he discovers that the bacon has grown moldy. He groans, realizing his low-level spatial magic doesn't stop time completely. His fluffy companion nudges his cheek, offering a silent form of comfort. He smiles, asking if it's trying to tell him not to worry about it. Undeterred, he decides to make the bacon he learned about in Sai Village. He lays out his ingredients: pork belly and some intriguing wolf meat. He struggles to whittle the wood into shavings, finding the task difficult. He yelps in pain as he accidentally gets a splinter in his finger. He shakes his throbbing finger as his companion looks on with concern. He arranges the wood shavings in a makeshift rack inside his frying pan. He places the meat on the rack, covers it, and sets it to smoke. His new cooking skill informs him that wolf meat needs a longer smoking time. He decides to let the wolf meat smoke a little longer than the pork. A sudden rustling sound from the nearby bushes startles him. He spots a pair of adorable hamster-like creatures in the undergrowth. He is instantly captivated by their cuteness and decides to appraise them. His appraisal identifies them as Mephora, creatures with a healing effect. He is desperate to get closer, but the creatures are wary of him. He realizes he can't approach them without scaring them away. He activates his new Kai concealment skill, hiding his presence from them. The skill works perfectly, allowing him to approach them undetected. He is overjoyed, marveling at how incredibly smooth their fur feels. He cuddles the cute creatures, completely lost in a moment of pure bliss. His fluffy companion glares at him, clearly jealous of the Mephora. He quickly apologizes, realizing he had been ignoring his longtime friend. After some time, he chases after his companion, who is still pouting. He returns to his pan and lifts the cover, revealing his creation. The bacon is a little light in color, but has a wonderful smoky aroma. He holds out a piece of the freshly cooked bacon for his companion. They both take a bite of the delicious, homemade smoked meat. The incredible flavor makes him shout with pure, unadulterated delight. He marvels at how juicy and flavorful both types of meat are. With his stomach full and his spirits high, he decides to test alchemy. He is amazed to see he can craft a potion with simple ingredients. He gathers the necessary herbs, surprised he needs no special equipment. He concentrates, channeling his MP into the herbs as the skill directs. With a flash of light, an ornate potion bottle materializes in his hands. He stares in shock, barely able to believe that he actually created it. He examines the bottle, wondering about the principles behind its creation. He quickly activates his appraisal skill to check its properties. The appraisal confirms it's a low-quality potion with a minor healing effect. He is thrilled that he was able to create a real potion by himself. He holds the bottle, wondering if the healing effect actually works. He decides to test it on the finger he pricked with the splinter. The pain vanishes instantly, confirming the potion's magical properties. Determined to improve, he resolves to try again with better materials. He decides to use a higher quality herb and more MP this time. He successfully creates a second potion and immediately appraises it. The appraisal shows the recovery effect has improved from minor to small. He realizes he needs to level up his skill to improve the potion's quality. He recalls the description can be drunk and wonders about the taste. He brings the bottle to his lips and takes a small, curious sip. The intensely bitter taste makes him spit it out in a comical spray. He chokes on the awful flavor as his companion looks on, baffled. He vows to never drink a potion unless he is seriously injured. The morning of the escort quest arrives and Sora has prepared diligently. He bids farewell to the kind innkeeper, promising to return soon. She tells him it will be lonely without him and wishes him well. He waves goodbye, leaving his first home in this new world behind. He looks out over the familiar capital city one last time before departing. In the days before leaving, he made various preparations for the journey. He made more bacon, sparred with Chris, and raised his skill levels. His appraisal skill reached level 8, revealing a list of possible professions. He realizes he might be able to choose a job, but isn't sure how. He decides to think about his profession after he has leveled up more. A familiar voice calls his name, pulling him from his thoughts. Chris and Rurika wave to him from the bustling city gate. He joins them, amazed at the large number of people in the caravan. He smiles, realizing he and his friends are not the only guards. The portly merchant, Dalton, politely greets the assembled adventurers. He introduces himself as the caravan leader and thanks them for their help. He outlines the 10-day journey from the capital to the city of Phoenix. He bows, asking for their assistance for the duration of the trip. He then prepares to introduce the person who will be leading them. He introduces the veteran C-rank party, Goblin's Howl, and their leader. Sora stares in shock, recognizing the familiar face of the party's leader. Siphon spots Sora in the caravan, shocked to see they are on the same quest. He playfully asks Sora about Rai's proposal, earning a sharp jab from Yuno. The butt of Yuno's staff connects solidly with Siphon's ribs. Siphon straightens up, formally introducing himself as the leader of Goblin's Howl. He explains their long, grueling mission, to walk and remain vigilant. The assembled adventurers let out a cheer as the massive city gates swing open. Sora feels a quiet thrill, knowing his first escort quest is finally beginning. From the gatehouse above, a guard's command to open the gates echoes loudly. The long train of covered wagons begins its slow journey out of the capital. The wagons are too heavily laden for passengers, so the adventurers must walk. Chris turns to Sora with an encouraging smile, telling him they should do their best. A bald adventurer with a mohawk approaches, asking if Sora is a novice too. He introduces himself, explaining he's new to this, unlike his two companions. He cheerfully declares that simply walking beside a wagon seems like an easy job. Chris warns him not to be careless, as her last escort quest was very difficult. The man and his brawny friend laugh, boasting about their superior stamina. From afar, Siphon watches the novices, remarking on how cheerful they seem. Yuno expresses her concern, wondering if the new adventurers are too relaxed. Siphon scoffs, knowing that the reality of the quest is never that easy. He explains that on the surface, escort missions appear simple and straightforward. In truth, they are a monotonous grind of endless walking and constant vigilance. The mental fatigue and pressure of potential failure are immense. Matching the wagon's slow pace drains stamina faster than normal travel. He says most adventurers are utterly exhausted after their first escort quest. Yuno suggests he advise the novices, but Siphon simply laughs. He believes anyone not tired is either a fool or someone with real potential. With that, he decides to simply wait and see how they fare. Only 1 hour passes on the dusty, uneventful road. The bald adventurer calls out, already panting and struggling to keep up. He is bent over, gasping for air, while Sora walks beside him effortlessly. The steady rumble of the wagon wheels accompanies his ragged breaths. The other novices are also panting heavily, already complaining of exhaustion. Sora cheerfully conjures mugs of water for his struggling comrades. The bald adventurer stares in disbelief, asking how Sora isn't tired. Sora stammers, vaguely attributing his endurance to his various skills. He realizes his walking skill negates the SP cost of his active perception. He smiles, seeing the quest as a perfect 3-in-1 opportunity for growth. His companion demands to know why he's smiling so happily. Sora looks surprised as the other exhausted adventurers stare at him. Even Siphon is taken aback by Sora's seemingly limitless energy. 10 long hours pass since their departure from the capital. The caravan finally comes to a halt for the night. Siphon calls out, announcing they've done well and will make camp. The moment they stop, the novice adventurers collapse in a heap of exhaustion. Siphon reminds them this is only day 1, with 3 more days until Orca. His sharp gaze scans the field of collapsed, groaning bodies. Sora moves among them, still energetic, checking if everyone is all right. Siphon watches with a look of genuine surprise and admiration. He asks the still energetic Sora to help him with the camp preparations. One of the exhausted novices groans, unable to even move from the ground. As night falls on their first day, it's time to prepare a meal. Siphon asks if Sora can cook, and Chris enthusiastically volunteers him. Sora is nervous, cooking for so many with unfamiliar ingredients. He decides to rely on his cooking skill to make a hearty spice soup. Chris and Rurika are blown away by the soup's incredible, spicy flavor. Chris praises Sora's skill, but he credits everyone for their help. Rurika and Chris exchange a knowing glance, a silent thought passing between them. Sora smiles, sensing he already knows what they're thinking. He knows that for hungry adventurers, the provided rations are never enough. He dramatically presents his secret weapon, a massive platter of homemade bacon. Chris and Rurika close their eyes in bliss, savoring the familiar, delicious taste. Sora happily announces he has plenty more, thanks to his spatial magic. As he stands up with the platters, Chris asks where he is going. He explains that he's going to share the food with the other hungry parties. He gives Rurika a gentle pat on the head as he leaves. Rurika watches him go, a warm, admiring smile on her face. The members of Goblin's Howl enjoy their simple meal around a campfire. Sora approaches their camp, offering a cheerful, "Good evening." Siphon warmly invites him to sit down and join their circle. Yuno smiles, saying that Siphon has told them all about him. Siphon jokingly introduces Yuno as his wife, completely flustering Sora. He reveals they were just discussing Sora, the kid with real guts. The other party members agree, impressed by his stamina during the day. Sora, embarrassed by the praise, offers a shy word of thanks. He then presents his platter of bacon, offering some to the party. Siphon is surprised, remarking on how thoughtful Sora is. The party members examine the unfamiliar meat, unsure of what it is. Siphon takes the first bite, the sound sharp in the quiet night. A moment later, the entire party erupts, shouting about how delicious it is. They declare it's better than anything in the capital, and they could eat it daily. Sora happily explains that he learned the recipe from a grateful village. After a moment, Siphon's expression turns serious. "Hey, Sora." He mentions hearing that Sora's party is disbanding and has something to ask. He looks Sora straight in the eye, asking if he'd join their party. Sora is completely stunned by the unexpected and generous offer. Siphon lists his qualities: great stamina, strength, and incredible cooking skills. He says having a fun and helpful person like Sora would be a huge asset. Sora admits to himself that it's a very tempting offer. He thanks Siphon, saying he's happy just to have been asked. But he feels that after his time with Chris and Rurika, he's still too inexperienced. He wants to adventure alone to become strong enough to survive on his own. He asks if Siphon might invite him again in the future. Siphon clutches his head in mock despair, lamenting that he's been rejected. Sora apologizes profusely, but thanks him again for the incredible offer. Siphon smiles, saying it's a shame, but he understands Sora's decision. Yuno tells him to let them know if he ever changes his mind. Sora thanks everyone, but a darker thought crosses his mind. He feels the cold presence of his mysterious observer in the darkness. He knows he can't risk endangering a new party while being watched. That night, he shares his bacon with everyone, learning more about this world. One night, Sora lies awake beside his sleeping companions, unable to find rest on their long journey. After 3 more grueling days, the caravan finally arrives at the beautiful relay town of Orca. Sora admires the town's charming, well-kept streets, finding them even more pleasant than the capital's. Their leader, Siphon, congratulates the weary adventurers for successfully completing the first leg of the trip. He announces that everyone will have a full day of rest while they unload some of the cargo. His tone then turns serious as he warns them to resupply as the path ahead is dangerous. The exhausted adventurers, however, ignore his warning and erupt in a joyous, chaotic celebration of their freedom. Chris and Rurika turn to Sora, their faces beaming with excitement as they wonder what to do. A determined smile spreads across Sora's face as he reveals he has a special plan in mind.